Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the 2024 Town of Oakville Budget Committee meeting. This morning we do have regrets from Councillor Longo. Committee members, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we have no consent items or confidential consent items. We are going to have 3 presentations today, and then we will get into the agenda items to discuss 5.1 and 5.2. So at this time, I would like to invite Commissioner Fu up to the podium for the Commission's presentation. Thank you.
Wonderful. Can you hear me okay? Great. Thank you very much. Starting with community infrastructure today. Great. The Community Infrastructure Commission mandate is to provide safe and sustainable transportation, stormwater, and natural infrastructure for the town of Oakville. Within the commission, there are 5 program areas spanning across 4 departments, which includes Oakville Transit, Roads and Works is the infrastructure maintenance program. Transportation Engineering Department splits into 2 program areas of infrastructure planning and improvement and development services and corporate asset management. Our program generally oversees the planning, construction, operations, and maintenance, and direct service delivery to customers within our road right-of-way, along with a corporate asset management function to develop policies, procedures, and practices and guide the management of all the town's infrastructure in an efficient and sustainable way. The Community Infrastructure Commission represents 24% of the town's overall gross operating budget and 29% of the net operating budget. Approximately 98% of the community infrastructure operating budget and 53% of the capital budget support council's strategic goal of growth management. As the primary objective of the infrastructure planning, infrastructure maintenance, and transit program promotes safe and efficient movement of people and goods throughout the town. These objectives help to manage growth, meet infrastructure needs, and ensuring we have complete communities and efficient mobility across the town. The corporate asset management program supports the various accountable government initiatives by continuing to develop the town's strategic asset management plan to meet legislation, as well as to promote overall asset management stewardship across all town programs. The $27.5 million environmental sustainability capital initiative represent projects to transform the town's transit fleet to electric, as well as various stormwater and creek erosion works to help meet future needs related to green spaces, natural areas, and act on climate change mitigation and adaptation. Lastly, the $2.6 million of traffic calming and road safety initiatives support community belonging to ensure safe neighborhoods to provide opportunity for residents to participate and engage in community and life. The total Community Infrastructure Commission's gross operating budget is $108.7 million, with the largest program being Oakville Transit and Infrastructure Maintenance, making up over 87% of the overall budget. The net impact of the commission to the tax levy is $76.1 million after external revenues and recoveries are factored in. Transit represents the larger portion with a 2023 net operating budget of $40.1 million, followed by infrastructure maintenance with $29.1 million. Approximately 79% of the development service program is recovered through fees and services. Transit and infrastructure maintenance also have significant revenue and recoveries that help to offset the net impact on the budget. Earlier this week, Councillor Hassett-Seal inquired about the increase related to the major road closures on major events for BIAs. This fee was reviewed this year, along with other fees through the fee model exercise. When the fee was first established, it was set at $500 without any analysis of staff time and associated costs. Over the years, the fee was increased by the rate of inflation, with the most recent rate of 2023 set at $701. Based on the fee model analysis completed this year, to achieve full cost recovery, the fee would be $3,407. We recognize that this amount will be cost prohibitive, so to support the community vibrancy, we adopt a similar cost-sharing principle used for the patio program. The new fee for 2024 is set to approximately 1/3 of the full cost at $1,030. Overall, the Community Infrastructure Commission budget has increased by $10.1 million over the 2023 budget, which represents a 15% increase. Transit represents the largest impact with a budget of $40.1 million, which increased $6.4 million, or 19% from 2023. The main driver of this increase are capital and growth impacts due to the purchase of electric buses and charging infrastructure, as well as additional inflationary and contractual obligations. In response to the great success of the Youth and Senior Ride Free program, we're experiencing a positive return on transit ridership, which I will describe in more detail in the following slides. With the upward trend, we use 96% of the ridership compared to pre-pandemic levels for 2024, with overall transit revenue increase of $1.8 million, and was able to reduce the tax stabilization reserve funding support of $1.2 million from the $3.2 million last year. Infrastructure maintenance represents the second largest increase with $2.9 million. One of the main drivers for the increase is the locate contract service increase. Under this program, the town receives approximately 16,000 locates requests a year, and efficiently delivery of this locate request enable construction project within the town to proceed in a smooth manner. In response to the passing of Bill 93, Getting Ontario Connected Act, that imposed locate request requirements and penalties related to the delays, staff successfully reviewed the locate program and negotiated with the locate service contractor to mitigate town's risks related to Bill 93. Lastly, due to legislative changes, additional staffing support has been included in development services. There has been an update to the rates and fee model that now reflect the average volume for the last 7 years. Next, I would like to highlight some of the Community Infrastructure Commission's 2023 accomplishments. Under growth management, you will see that we have focused on the delivery of capital projects and enhance pedestrian safety with the installation of 40 pedestrian crossings by end of 2023 through our neighborhood traffic safety program. Under community belonging, we successfully implemented free youth and senior transit, which I'll go into more detail at a later slide. Under environmental sustainability, we continue our journey to electrify our fleet, including operations of our first e-bus this year. Further, we completed phase 1 and phase 2 of the rainwater management financial plan, which identified the total stormwater infrastructure needs and prioritized projects to develop a long-term 30-year plan. For our key program outcomes, we're starting with the asset management indicators. Asset management helps us put rigor and structure around the decision-making process and the information we use to make strategic decisions and help to prioritize our budget needs. The corporate asset management plan developed become the basis for our town's operating and the long-term capital forecast. It is about doing the right thing to the right assets at the right time so that our assets will continue to work well with no surprises. The KPI indicators are related to the state of the infrastructure report by asset management previously presented to you. The percentage condition and useful life ratio are different lenses to look at our infrastructure state of good repair and should be considered together. For example, if there's a high percent of assets in poor condition and low percent meeting expected useful life, this would indicate an increase in the investment renewal funding would be required. Currently, we have 90% of assets in good and fair condition, while 82% of assets meeting the expected useful life, indicating the town is investing in an appropriate amount of funding to support the infrastructure in an overall good state of repair. Having a balance across the 3 condition levels is quite reasonable. The 10% of town assets in poor condition is currently lower when compared with neighboring municipalities that have percentages of poor condition asset ranging from 18 to 30%. It is reasonable to have higher percentage in poor condition category for low-risk assets where service disruption is minimal or have quick replacement time or have alternative options available. Per Jonathan's presentation earlier this week, through our asset management planning activities, we will strive to balance the service level with the need to prioritize capital projects to maintain the town's long-term financial sustainability. Moving on to transit, the COVID-19 pandemic had a significant impact on transit services. We took a measured approach to return transit service level based on transit demand throughout the network. As you can see, under transit trip per capita indicator, we are forecasting to the end of the year to be very close to the pre-pandemic level 2029. And I personally hoping that I don't have to mention the comparison to pre-pandemic levels next year. Our Roads and Works Department continues to provide excellent operations and maintenance activities with minimal deficiencies and generally achieving all service level requirements for winter maintenance. Development application process under development services continue to improve. For DESP, staff completed processing the remaining application that was submitted before Bill 23, where the scope site plans for 10 residential units or less were eliminated. Regarding active transportation and recreational trails, last year, we have regrouped the various KPI into one for the entire town. Active transportation infrastructure includes sidewalks and multi-use trails in the town's right-of-way, and while the outside of the right-of-way, there are recreational trails. This year, we now included 297 kilometers of on-road cycle lanes and signed bicycle routes from a recent inventory exercise. That was not represented in previous year's numbers. This KPI also includes kilometers constructed through town capital project as well as the development. For 2023, 3 kilometers of AT infrastructure has been added to the network. There is a portion of this town number is reported in other program areas. You will see in Commissioner Bell's presentation specifically highlighting recreational trails as part of her KPI. There are a number of emerging trends that we are aware of and monitoring very closely. Starting with transit, we recognize the need to provide efficient and convenient service to support the growth plan for Oakville and enhance residents' overall mobility. We will be completing our 5-year plan in 2024, which will explore a variety of opportunities to enhance our service from gridding the network, achieving the balance between different service delivery models within our family of service, such as an increase on-demand service in low ridership areas. With increase in ridership and the great uptake of our free youth and senior fare implementation, one of our immediate challenges is the need to increase service levels, such as more buses that are running more frequently to accommodate the higher demand. This is what we want, to get more people on transit and decrease congestion on our road. However, it does increase the financial pressure to ensure we have sufficient resources to match the increase in ridership. Looking into the long term, providing transit connections across Oakville boundaries and how transit service is delivered at a regional or GTHA level is on our radar. We are actively participating in the region's transit operationalization study, as well as participating at the provincial level to look at fare and service integration. The government's review of transit will have an impact to Oakville and our residents. There is an overall shortage of resources, such as limited number of consultants and their availability, which impact project timelines. There are also shortages of skilled labor, supplies, and materials, which impact our construction projects. These shortages, coupled with supply chain issues, resulted in costs trending upwards for contracts, fleet, material, and construction. Staff closely monitors and updates project costs, which is reflected in future budgets. However, these cost escalation further places pressure on our reserves and financial stability. This further emphasizes the importance of grant funding to support our work. In the infrastructure realm, there is a strong push to mitigate and adapt to climate change, creating resiliency and to minimize our impact to the environment. Electric fleet and equipment, use of green solutions in stormwater management, and use of recycled asphalt are just some of the examples. We are regularly monitoring, exploring industry-forward techniques, technologies, and design, and evaluate its applicability for adoption. On the transportation and mobility front, there are many emerging trends to improve our mobility and create a safe way to travel, such as different ways to design physical spaces, our streets, and how to share spaces between the modes, to the way we travel using autonomous connected vehicles and micromobility options such as e-scooter, to using AI and smart sensors to manage traffic and movement of people, goods, parking, to mobility as a service. The wide range of opportunities will be reviewed under our Transportation Master Plan to prepare ourselves for the future of travel and enhanced mobility. As part of the State of Infrastructure report, we provided a summary snapshot of our key physical attributes and current physical state of town's asset portfolio. While overall, our assets are being maintained in a good condition, there is a growing portion of our infrastructure that's reaching end of life. As of June 2023, approximately 44% of our infrastructure is in late stages and may require significant renewal or upgrade in the next 20 to 30 years. This is why it's important as part of our asset management planning to look beyond the 10 years to understand what the life cycle requirements are and what the financial requirements need to be. The following 3 slides provide committee information related to transit as has been expressed as a topic of interest. Free transit for senior and youth was implemented in May 2023, and it is a resounding success. When comparing free transit month of May and June to the no free transit of January to April, the average increase is 102% for seniors, 86% for youth, and 8% for adults. Further, the 2024 ridership for youth and senior is projected to be higher than the 2019 pre-pandemic levels by 20 and 38% respectively. In addition to the ridership increases, ridership by fare type has also changed. Prior to the implementation of free transit for senior and youth, the distribution of ridership is shown under the January 2023 column on the chart, and after implementation is shown under the column of June 2023. And as expected, there was an increase in youth and senior ridership on the Oakville transit system. As requested also from Council, we'd like to provide you with the transit statistics up to August 2023. I'm happy to inform you that the ridership is back in full swing and the system is performing very well. Boarding for August 2023 is greater by 50% when it compared to the August 2022 numbers. When compared year-to-date August numbers, it is greater for year-to-date 2022 numbers by 70%. When we do compare it to pre-pandemic levels, the recovery rate for August 2023 to August 2019 is 110%. However, the year-to-date for 2023 compared to 2019 year-to-date, recovery rate stands at 93%. With all of these stats, staff review preliminary ridership data and are reporting that the ridership during the second week of September reaching over 16,500 per day. This represents the single highest number of passengers the Oakville transit system has ever carried, exceeding pre-pandemic levels in September. Based on all of these positive trends and the information, our 2024 ridership forecast assumed 96% of pre-pandemic levels moving forward. Ward 3 councilors requested for implementation of permanent ride-on-demand service in Southeast Oakville. On September 18 this year, staff presented to council the result of the pilot to date and recommended the 2024 on-demand transit expansion plan, making the existing pilot areas in Ward 3 and 7 permanent, expansion of the service into Fogger Ward and Bronte Creek neighborhood, as well as replacing the late-night service. As part of the transit planning efficiencies, this expansion has no impact to the 2024 budget, while further expands our family of service by providing more options for our residents. The implementation timeline for this expansion is Q2 of 2024, after the ride-hailing application is implemented. Staff will be preparing a communication strategy for the expansion to ensure a seamless transition. Moving on to our key initiative for 2024, and I will just like to highlight a few. Under growth management, developing the long-term transportation master plan will be a key focus with the plan to complete in early 2025. Work associated with the Midtown implementation plan will be very active in 2024, particularly related to the road and stormwater analysis. Under environmental sustainability, we continue to develop options for a sustainable funding source to support the $640 million identified as part of the rainwater management plan needed to renew and protect our assets over the long term, as well as providing enhancements to increase resiliency against climate change. Question was raised if we could bring the stormwater fee to council earlier. We have recently hired a consultant, and we're planning to bring the funding options to council in Q2 of 2024 for consideration prior to the start of the 2025 budget process. Under accountable government, asset management will be completing the asset management plan for non-core assets such as parks, facilities, fleet, and equipment in order to meet regulation requirements. Staff will also be working on the implementation of a new decision support software tool that will help us to predict and prioritize our infrastructure lifecycle needs over the long term. This software, once implemented, will be using data as evidence to make strategic infrastructure decisions and contribute to our long-term financial sustainability. Our commission continuously looks for ways to improve, whether it's process streamlining that results in cost avoidance, efficiencies, or improve on customer experience. As indicated earlier, the overall transit network will be reviewed through the 5-year plan, while at the same time ensuring alignment to the goal of the townwide transportation master plan. Through this review, there may be efficiencies that can be realized, such as increase on-demand service and eliminate conventional routes. Utilizing the financial savings and reallocate it to increase frequency of routes or introduce new routes. We are excited that the plan will provide a wide range of options to make our transit system more convenient and efficient to attract more ridership. A very exciting initiative is infrastructure maintenance program under Roads and Works, piloted an AI product that helped with our road patrol process. We equipped our road patrol vehicle with a technology called City Rover. It has AI cameras that detects the defects and analyze the data. This technology could detect and report infrastructure issues, help to proactively address deficiencies, and promote safe roads while reducing repairs and maintenance costs. Once the AI technology learns and applies the perimeter that meets the minimum standard guidelines, we foresee that it will increase our efficiency in road maintenance. With the renewed leafing program approved in 2021, we have continued the elimination of spring leaf pickup that saw a savings of $28,000 since 2022. This allowed for future increase of service areas as tree canopy meet the approved service levels. In addition, we have developed an application in 2022 that enhanced customer experience where the resident could track our collection process. While behind the scenes, this application provides data in real time for our operators, which allows staff to modify our routes and deliver the service much more efficiently. On the development engineering side, a number of initiatives were completed to improve customer experience and streamline town processes. In May 2023, a new site plan alteration bylaw was approved that clarified process related to enforcement, inspection, and security release, impact to neighbors, and establishment of a site alteration agreement. As an example of efficiency, this bylaw streamlined the time staff spend on what happens when a property is sold when there's still work outstanding. We also made changes to our development engineering portal and web page to provide more information and assistance to applicants, including guidelines and videos to guide applicants through each step of the application process, which improve customer experience. We further completed a development engineering process and permit review using funding received through the province's Audit and Accountability Fund. Although there was a need to adjust the work plan to respond to Bill 223, the project provided valuable recommendations to streamline internal processes, including updates to the Amanda workflow to automatically notify staff when inspections are booked, improve communications with applicants, and bylaw updates. There are a number of positions included in the 2024 budget. They cover different areas of focus. For transit, there is one new FTE included to ensure there is sufficient support in the transit maintenance area, while additional FTEs is to provide sufficient resources to operate services to accommodate growth. 3 positions are included to support the delivery of the $164 million open capital project under infrastructure planning program within transportation engineering, which include the delivery of the neighborhood traffic safety program. Under development services program within transportation engineering, 4 new positions are recommended to support the changes in legislation. Finally, for infrastructure maintenance area under roads and works, 2 additional staff is required to implement a new minor capital rehabilitation program to manage ongoing renewal, maintenance of roads, sidewalk, bridges, fences, noise walls, storm sewer, and ditches. There is also a conversion of seasonal staff to full-time position to mitigate recruitment and retention difficulties and create operational efficiencies. So now we move on to the capital budget overview. The total 2024 capital budget for the Community Infrastructure Commission is $65.3 million, of which 43% or $28 million is related to infrastructure planning program, which support growth and renewal of town roads, bridges, storm, and active transportation infrastructure, as well as creeks and shoreline improvements. Oakville Transit represents the second largest portion with $23 million, which include projects to transform the fleet to electric buses, as well as various equipment and facility infrastructure repairs. The infrastructure maintenance budget includes $13.1 million to support ongoing replacement vehicles, equipment, traffic infrastructure, as well as minor roadway and stormwater rehab work. I would like to note that the townwide capital budget map will be made available on the 2024 budget website in the coming days, which will help the public as well as council to see a visual representation of the capital budget for the town. This slide highlights some of the key capital projects budgeted for 2024. Under growth management, we have $9 million in road resurfacing. Please note that in the package, the detail of our pavement preservation condition index is appended as part of my presentation. And there's also introduction of $1.4 million in minor capital rehab program and $4.3 million in replacement of new vehicles. Neighborhood traffic safety improvement are categorized under both growth management and community belonging. Staff presented to council in September, where the total investment is at $6.2 million. Noted here are $3.6 million of traffic intersection improvements, $2.6 million in traffic calming and road safety programs, and some of the highlights include design and construction 28 PXOs and implementation of traffic calming measures at 4 school frontages. The $7.1 million of AT improvement under our commission include construction and multi-use trail on North Service Road between 4th Line and Dorval, design and improvement Burhenthrope Road west of 6th Line, urbanization, and AT along the Bridge Road. Last year, council inquired how much investment is related to climate action within our commission. We contribute to the overall environmental portfolio and climate action plan highlighted in the green text, which includes $19 million to continue transition of the transit fleet to electric and charging infrastructure, as well as EV charging station and central ops. Also, there's multiple shorelines and drainage improvement projects, including Shorewood Promenade, Shell Park Shore rehabilitation, and stormwater drainage improvement for Brookfield and Seville. Last year, the Budget Committee expressed interest in ATMP programming. I'd like to provide you with some details related to this topic. The Active Transportation Master Plan, or ATMP, includes more than just recommendations of new sidewalks and cycling facilities. It also includes programs and policy initiatives to encourage active and sustainable trips and travel that address 4 main themes that's noted on the slide. Some example of the work in 2023 and will continue into 2024 on this front include delivering of the cycling handbook that's multilingual, working with Halton District School Board on safe school travel, including developing an active school street pilot project in 2024, partnership with Oakville Public Library on Bike Month promotion, promotion of the Smart Commute program, which assists employers and employees with sustainable travel options. And we also continue to work with our partners in park and open space and recreation to install bike racks and repair stations in parks and recreational centers. There are no new funds for AT promotion and education in 2024. Work in this area continues using funding approved since 2023. Active transportation is a key component of the TMP. The Transportation Master Plan will review the overall AT programming with recommendations for future enhancement to the existing program. On the capital front, the 2024 budget includes $9.1 million for projects that include active transportation infrastructure both on the right-of-way and the recreational trails. The details of the list of the projects are appended to my presentation. As part of the 2024 Budget Committee consultation, there were a number of requests that are applicable to this commission. For Ward 1, there was a request to pilot one-way street traffic on Bronte Road, between Lakeshore Road and Marine Drive in advance of the development, which is at the southeast corner of Lakeshore and Bronte. Staff are currently working with the developer on the construction management plan for this site. The recommendation as part of the plan is the vehicular traffic will be limited to one way in order to provide safe pedestrian passageway on both east and west side of Bronte and to accommodate work and staging areas required during construction. This change will be put in place by the developer as part of their construction management plan. During the one-way period, transportation staff will collect data for before, during, and after construction to understand the traffic pattern in the area. For Ward 2, there were 3 items identified. First one is the revitalization streetscape of Lakeshore West and Kerr Street as related to the capital budget. In 2023, capital funds were included for a streetscape study for Kerr and Bronte Village and functional design for remaining downtown streets. This work is being led by urban design team in planning services, but is supported by the multidisciplinary team, including asset management and transportation engineering. This study is expected to be finished in late 2024. On the slide, design and construction timeline for Kerr Village is shown with a total of $25.3 million, which is included in the 10-year forecast. Second item is the status of Spear Road from 4th Line to Kerr Street. Spear Road reconstruction is proceeding in phases. The phase from just west of 3rd Line to 4th Line proceeded first and is now complete. The design of the second phase from 4th Line to Dorval is nearing completion and will be tendered in the second quarter of 2024. Work will begin late in 2024. Similar to the first phase, this project includes separate bike lanes. We have built in lessons learned from the first phase into this design. Construction funds has already been allocated for this work. The third phase from east of Dorval to Kerr will begin in 2025, with construction planned for 2028 in the amount of $13 million. The third item requested by Ward 2 is an increased leaf pickup for Glen Abbey. Glen Abbey currently received one surface pass, where the tree canopy age is 25 years or older, but less than 40 years old. The next level is when the tree reaches the age between 40 to 60, which will warrant a second service pass. Glen Abbey will receive the second pass in 2030. If we proceed to provide Glen Abbey with a second pass ahead of the service level established, then essentially we're modifying that second pass service level up by 6 to 7 years. For equity purposes, our eligible areas that reaches 33 years of tree age will then be entitled to the second pass. Staff recommends that we remain consistent to the service level approved in 2021 that provide an equitable tiered service level that is reflective of the age of the canopy. For Ward 3, 2 items were requested. First, the information regarding what the cost of Midtown will be and what amount will be paid by the Oakville taxpayers. Midtown infrastructure costs are to be shared between MTO, Metrolink, Halton Region, and the town. For town's portion, the majority of infrastructure costs will be funded through development charges. Currently, as part of the Midtown implementation program, the town and the region are undertaking master plans for transportation, stormwater, water, and wastewater, with plan to complete in 2024. This work will be used to update the previous estimates and determine the appropriate development charges that the town and the region will collect to provide the infrastructure needed within Midtown. The outcome of these new master plans will be reflected in the next update to the DC background study, which will likely be taking place in the next 6-8 years. The recently completed 2022 development charge background study included $302 million in Midtown transportation projects only, which is informed by previously completed Midtown studies, for which a minor benefit to existing of $2.8 million will be town funded for active transportation projects. Also, there are changes to the provincial legislation and policies impacting development charges with Bill 131 and 134. These changes are ongoing, and the impact will be incorporated into the next DC update. Second item for Ward 3 is to identify the revenue loss should a caravan service become free for all persons with disabilities. The 2024 forecast revenue loss will amount to approximately $65,000. Ward 6 councilor inquired about how we could reduce the risk of slip and falls on sidewalks. As per Ontario regulation under the Municipal Act, we have to adhere to minimum maintenance standards for municipal highways that ensure sidewalks are maintained and repaired promptly to ensure pedestrian safety. Work operation team conduct the annual sidewalk inspection in the spring of each year to ensure compliance with the regulations. If a service discontinuity on or within the sidewalk exceeds 2 centimeters, it is painted immediately with orange paint by the sidewalk inspection staff to alert pedestrian users of the discontinuity. A temporary or permanent repair is initiated through a work order program to address these concerns. Annually, we complete the work order generated through minimum maintenance standard patrols and sidewalk inspections with an annual capital budget in the range of $200,000. All of the above activities ensure that we minimize slip and falls on our sidewalks and meet legislative requirements. And finally, for Ward 7, information was requested regarding Windrow snow removal service. Staff did prepare a staff report for today to the Budget Committee on townwide windrow clearing program. Director Inchasi would present the windrow clearing program following my presentation. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. I think you've garnered a few there. That was a very extensive presentation. We appreciate it. Councillor Elgar, over to you first.
Thank you very much. Through you, Chair O'Meara. Just a question. This is our second day of senior staff presentations. My concern is there were very few questions at the first meeting, and I doubt there'll be very many questions at this meeting. And the problem being, we've got a 317-page report, which I, for one, have not had time to go through, and I don't think probably most councillors have had any time to go through, which are going to create a lot of questions going forward. Like, how should we handle this? Because are we supposed to wait until the public meeting, and instead of the public asking the questions, councillors are going to be asking all the questions? Because I've got a number, but I don't want to, and it's just a cursory look. I'm looking at transit as a perfect example of, we're hitting a little bit of an impact on the taxpayer, like $40 million, 19% increase, almost 20. I just know once the public hear about this, they're not going to be happy because all I hear about are empty buses. I know and it's a problem. People drive when they see the empty bus go by. And, lots of people are saying, just get rid of them and start Uber. But we have to have a plan that tries to show that we're working to save money, but also provide the service. And like federal and provincial grants, I haven't had time to dig in, but I read somewhere where Burlington got all kinds of money because they requested it, but I don't know whether we did or not for electric buses and different modes of transportation. So I'm just trying to figure out, when we finish this meeting, when do we get a chance to really, after having time to read the budget, which we just received, the budget book, had time to go through it, when do we ask the questions?
Well, I appreciate that. And I've had a preliminary discussion with staff about that because a couple councillors have brought that up. And staff are more than willing to carve out time during the delegation or after the delegations come to sit there and go back and forth with councillors on all the issues that they have in the budget book. What I might suggest is to try and aggregate those and to send them to staff and maybe copy the council members so we're not duplicating. And if we can send them to Jonathan and Delabar, and then what they will do on the agenda is they will carve out time for the committee members to have those questions responded to and to maybe probe a little bit further. But I think if they've got some idea of where some of the concerns are, they can prepare aptly for those and they can get those questions ready. But so that will be on the 31st or the 1st. I think we might leave it to staff just to decide what time is the best time to do that. But I hear you, and I think there is a lot there, and I know there's a lot to go over. But I think if we can aggregate them together, and then we can see that other councillors might have similar questions, and then staff can respond appropriately. But we will make sure that we do carve out time at those two meetings prior to the tabling of this budget for the mayor on November 2nd. We will ensure that that's done. Have I got that right?
Sean, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Mayor, you do have that correct in the discussion. I would, though, which we didn't discuss prior to the meeting, suggest that it is a possibility that we could set something up next week, if that was agreeable to the committee. The time is short. The whole budget process has been expedited as a result of the change in legislation, and it's been a desire to provide as many opportunities for consultation with the public throughout that process. But we could look at perhaps establishing a date next week, and that would give you time to ask those questions prior to the delegations and the November 2nd meeting, which is, I believe, the meeting where amendments need to be tabled. So that's a suggestion to you.
Okay, yeah, we'll work on that with staff, but I hear you, and you're not alone in those concerns. Is that everything, Councillor Elgar, for now? Okay, thank you. No problem. Councillor Nand, I've got you next. Sorry, yeah, I'm just kind of going on the screen. It's Councillor Chen if you'd like to go, or Councillor Nand, you can arm wrestle for it.
I'm virtually arm wrestling. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, so if I could, first of all, please ask that staff say what tabs they're presenting on, because that will be helpful for me to find where my questions are. But specifically to transit, so when I look at page 112, under the KPIs, the cost recovery ratio, one of the things talking about external sources being advertising. And I couldn't tease that out. What is the revenue from advertising? And is that one of the things that's looked at to increase revenue in order to decrease the tax burden or taxpayer burden?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't have the exact amount for there's Director Cowan. He'll have the numbers.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you. On an annual basis, we usually receive about $600,000 in advertising. And again, it is all based on the contracts with the shelters and the advertising on those shelters and in the buses.
And so is that just annually that amount? There's no ability to improve that source of funding?
Through you, Mr. Chair, every few years when we go out with a new shelter contract, those rates are renegotiated.
And so it doesn't include anything on buses or inside buses?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it does include the internal advertising on the buses as well. So we do not.
Okay, so that's a package.
That is correct.
Okay. Okay. So I am interested in that being as an area that should be looked at closer. So thank you for that. With Commissioner, in your presentation, you had mentioned about 96% of pre-pandemic level ridership. Is that the new KPI of what our pre-pandemic ridership was? Because that wasn't great in a sense of, that's why we're trying to improve ridership. So the KPI is, I realized right at the beginning of your presentation, you said you hope not to refer to the pandemic levels, but I'm curious about this KPI because it keeps being brought up every time we hear pre-pandemic levels of travel, and we know that wasn't fantastic. So my question is this the KPI?
So through you, Mr. Chair, we're using 2019 as a way to measure getting back to regular service levels. As of September, we're actually exceeding those ridership levels of 2019, but it did give us an ability to track where we were to prior 2019 numbers. So that number is approximately 3 million riders on an annual basis. We are actually coming very close to that number, if not have already surpassed it this year. But that is just a mark in time to understand where we were in terms of recovery from 19. So as of this date, we are hoping to continue increasing that ridership and increasing that number.
Okay, so we will have more, the KPI is going to change to what we want to reach versus what we're looking in the past. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it would be a forecasted ridership number, so yes.
Okay, thank you. And my next question, and sorry, I won't be long here, but so on that slide that Commissioner Fu presented about increase in seniors and youth, and yet there was a decrease of 14% in adult fares, which is where the costs are. So what happened there?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's not a decrease in adult fares, it's just the proportion of riders using the system. So in essence, after the implementation of free seniors and youth, adult ridership actually increased 8% in that month. So we are actually seeing a full system increase in ridership. But what that chart is showing is literally just the proportion of riders broken down by percentage. So the senior and youth ridership went up, and proportionally the adult ridership went down.
Thank you, Director. It seems weird to me. So the two things aren't jiving. And my last point here is, so my understanding is that even though our seniors and youth are free from their own pocket per se, we do obviously, there's an $8.61 forecast of subsidy, but my understanding is that there is a provincial subsidy, right, for every rider taking public transit. Is that not correct?
Through you, Mr.
When
Chair.
we're submitting those numbers to the province?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we report annually to the province for gas tax funding based on the ridership.
So that's strictly for gas tax, so nothing else?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct.
I thought last year in our presentation at budget, there was a point made that there was actually funding per rider. I don't recall that being strictly gas tax, but I'll have to follow up on that on my own offline. Thank you very much.
Good, thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Nanda?
Thank you, through you, Chair O'Meara. Thank you so much for the presentation. It was very detailed. I do agree with my council colleague, though it's a lot of information that we need to compress and understand. But one of the questions I had was for the transit, for the routes and increase in frequency, if we're seeing an increase in ridership now, and for example, in our ward, as roads are getting built and they're being connected, when would we see an increase of the more routes in our area? Is that being done each year, or how does it work?
So I'll start and I'll pass it over to Adrian. So every single year we do our annual service plan. So every single year we'll review the ridership, where the routes need to be, existing routes or new routes as required. And there's a criteria that it meets a certain criteria to say whether a new routes are required or a route could be eliminated. So through that service review annually, you will potentially see the new routes. I believe there is some plans to go into North Oakville, and I'll let Adrian express that.
So through you, Mr. Chair, as Commissioner Fu mentioned, we do an annual review of the routes And pending on the ridership demand in the areas, we will determine if it is an on-demand service and or a fixed route. For 2024, we have been noticing some ridership gains in the Ward 7 area. So we are looking specifically to see what can be done. Unfortunately, not all the roads are connecting. So the creating a transit route in Ward 7 is a little tricky due to the fact that we have to kind of reroute the bus based on what we're planning. So we do keep an eye, especially in that Ward 7 area, because we are getting the requests and that demand in there. And hopefully we can solidify a route for the residents and come back with some more information in 2024.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Hazlet-Thiel's next.
Thank you. Through you, Chair O'Meara. I concur with Councillor Elgar that we've normally been given a week in between getting the book and this. So I'm going to ask some questions, but I do have more, and I didn't have a chance late last night to consolidate. But so my first question is around the infrastructure and the greening of infrastructure. So in terms of investment, I mean, council has stated that the preferred approach is green versus gray. Do we have in this budget or on staff green infrastructure experts that support that work in order to enable perhaps some cost savings on the green side, but also greater support of climate change?
Through you, Mr. Chair, within the capital budget, there are, as noted in my presentation, there are projects that's already green in nature, such as shoreline rehabs and information. Now, in terms of the stormwater work, we do have staff that are experts in stormwater that could support the path of having preferred more green over the gray. And further, all of our digital design work are outsourced to consultants that are expert in this area and are very familiar with all the variety of green infrastructure LID availabilities for stormwater. So from a resourcing perspective, we have the sufficient internal and external support to take on this preference, and as well in the capital that will be reflected as the detailed design get completed.
So one of the, in one of the smaller meetings that your group held, there was questions around checklists and mapping out what the analysis of green versus gray. So what I'm hearing you say is you have either external resources or you have an internal resource that can give us that clarity that this project, this is what we've looked at in terms of green versus gray, and here's how we got to our conclusions. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, we're counting on that. Thank you. My other question is around ATMP. So I'm totally confused, I'll be honest. So we're spending somewhere around 9.1 million, is that correct? But we're getting 3 kilometers of, a 3 kilometer increase in the amount of actual cycle lanes, because I get that you've wanted to be inclusive of other elements that support cycling, but benchmark to benchmark, are we getting 3 kilometers of on-road cycling increase, or what is it?
Stream share. It is a complex area. I do not have the breakdown of the 3 kilometer that was achieved this year, and I could certainly get back to you in terms of what kind of type of facility it is. To clarify, though, active transportation facilities includes, it could be off-road, it could be recreation trails, it could be a multi-use path on the side of the road, it could be on-road lanes or on-road routes, or it could be sidewalks. So there are a variety of AT infrastructure that's classified as AT, and when we do report on that KPI, we summarize the total that's achieved. Now, in terms of the dollar figure, the $9 million does not equate to 3 kilometers. I want to clarify all of these capital projects in your appendix of my presentation, I believe is on slide 32, indicates all of these projects are multi-year projects, and many of these projects will take a number of years to actually provide the KPI that we achieve another kilometer or another kilometer. So it is difficult to tie the capital budget amount to the kilometer that's realized. So I just want to make sure there's a distinction between a capital budget investment versus the actual realization of that particular pathway or on-road route that's installed.
So I guess my question is, at what point do we get a report that, from a benchmark perspective, says this is the increase on the road versus in the parks and trails, et cetera? All of it is important work. All of it encourages active living, all of it, but some of it is more about mobility from one to another. And while we continue to hear that we need to reduce parking minimums. We need to reduce the amount of times people are in cars. I just want to see the correlation in an increase in ways that people can safely, and I emphasize the word safely, use their bicycle to get from one place to another. And every year at budget time, I get more and more concerned where it's incremental in the minorest of levels. And so if there could be more information shared about that, that would be appreciated. My other question is around,
Sorry, Councilor Haslett-Field, I think the Commissioner might want to speak to that one. Sorry,
I
the
just
CAO.
wanted to add, thank you, Councillor Mayor. We normally take a report forward, I think it's early part of the year, on the ATMP program. So a lot of the questions you've addressed will certainly be addressed through that report. But attached to budget itself, the 3 kilometers, which as I understand is what we had delivered last year, I do think we can probably provide you through this budget process the number of kilometers that will eventually get delivered by the 9 million, the 9.1 million, which is I think your question. It won't all happen, as the Commissioner said, next year, but it will happen over a number of years. So we should be able to get you, and I'm looking at the Commissioner at the same time, that number of kilometers for the 9.1 million in this budget discussion.
CAO Closey, thank you very much. That's exactly where I wanted to get to. So 2 other questions, sorry, I will limit all the rest down. But so on the stormwater fee, so I just want to clarify, so you're saying we will be into an implementation of, we'll see the recommendation and implementation would be 2025?
Oh, through Chair, we will come to council with a recommendation of the options of funding options for stormwater infrastructure. We have not put in a timeline for the implementation of fee, as we do need to review with council first the different options of funding to support that program. Okay. That will come in 2024 prior to the budget process, so you could make decisions related to that.
Okay, last 2 questions. The transit master plan, when do we see the results of that transit master plan and its implications? Will it be in time for the 2025 budget, 2020? Yeah.
So the transit 5-year plan, I'm refraining from calling the master plan because on the same time we're doing the transportation master plan. So the 5-year transit plan is being initiated this year. There will be public consultation, including meetings with you later on this year or early next year, and it is planned to be finished sometimes next year. That information will be feed into, though, to ensure that it goes into the transportation master plan. So you will be seeing the results of the 5-year plan sometimes next year.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I just want to thank Councillor Lichena for her questions around transit. I won't belabor it, but I concur that there's lots of questions there.
Thank you very much, Councillor Shi.
Thank you, Chair Maria. My first question is, thank you, Commissioner Fu, for the presentation. My first question about the transit data. So we're very glad to see there's a huge increase of the ridership. So I can, personally, I can see in the morning and in the afternoon for the school time, the bus is full. So may I know the exact, like, I believe you have the data, so how many students or youth or senior can benefit with this program? Like, for example, every month, 5,000 or 10,000, 20,000?
We have the stats.
Do we have this kind of data? How many people we can?
Yes, we have the number.
Through you, Mr. Chair, on an annual basis, the senior ridership is approximately 350,000 rides in a year. And youth represent almost 700,000 rides a year. So that's almost 1 million rides in terms of an annual basis, in terms of the program.
Okay, thank you. My second question is for Commissioner Fu. So I noticed that from your presentation, we will have this invest 5.1 million for the North Oakville snow deposit site. So is that related directly with the winter service for the townwide?
Oh, sorry. For the North Oakville storage site?
Yeah.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. The so in North Oakville, right now, when we actually take snow and we have to move them all the way to South Oakville, is very inefficient. So as we expand, as we grow in Oakville, we need to make sure there's operational facilities for us to operationally make it very efficient. So we are in the process and hoping to buy a North Oakville snow storage site. And it is meant for the whole town, but really we do work in a geographic area where all the snow that needs to be removed goes north, and we don't want them to travel all the way south and come back to the north and continue the snow removal service. So it's more broken down by geographic area.
Okay, thank you. So that is not directly related with the winter clean service we will discuss.
Through Mr. Chair, yes, the Windrow service is not related to the North Oakville storage site. That is two separate it's two separate operations. It's not related. Windrow service does not include snow removal.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McNeese, you're next.
Thank you, through you, Chair O'Meara, and thanks to staff for a very detailed presentation. Just want to follow up on a few councillors' comments and have one to add for myself. So related to the gas tax that Councillor Lashena was mentioning, which I think is called the Community Infrastructure Fund now, I believe is the new name for it. Is there some sort of metric or ratio we could get? What I'm interested in is with our increased ridership, even though it was due to free rides for youth and seniors, are we getting more back from the Community Infrastructure Fund per rider? Seeing ridership went up, does that sort of make sense? Or something there where it just sees if we get ridership up, even if we're not getting the fare box, is our gas tax revenue or Community Infrastructure Fund revenue going up as well? And I think this is probably an after the fact thing where we still have the application in, but if there's maybe a report back at some point. So I'll leave it at that. Secondly, follow up to Councillor Hassett-Thiel on the green infrastructure. In our transportation department, do we have, in my experience, landscape architects have provided a lot of value to green infrastructure design in partnership with engineers. Do we have a landscape architect in-house working on stuff like this?
Through Mr. Chair, no, we do not have an internal landscape architect, but we could certainly ensure that our consulting team carry such expertise in our future projects. I believe Jonathan may have an answer to your gas tax question as well.
If I could just add to the landscape architect, in many of the projects, there's a fair amount of coordination between planning and infrastructure in order to do the design of units, and there certainly is landscape architects within the planning department.
Oh, within our planning department, I see.
Through you, Chair O'Meara, in answer to your question, the gas tax. So the federal gas tax, which is now the CCBF, I think that's what you're referring to, that is all based on per capita. It's the Ontario one that is a split between population and ridership. And it does take a couple of years for that ridership information to work its way through. And then it's based on your share compared to everybody else as well. So we'll see that come through as the years go by, as our ridership goes up.
Okay, would we have some sort of forecast that we could start looking at? I mean, I don't expect to have the answer right now, but just maybe to help us understand if, you know, reducing fares or waiving fares to get ridership up, we have some cost recovery in another way, if that's kind of the sort of recovery model.
Through you, Chair O'Meara, I'm not sure on that, but we'll take a look and we can get back to you on that
Okay,
information.
appreciate that. One final question, just on the traffic calming for schools. We've had quite a few complaints on Colonel William Parkway and Stockbridge is just beside St. Mary's School, which is a major collector road, and I think that's causing a lot of conflicts with people trying to bypass busy intersections, Dundas and Bronte Road. I'd be interested, I know it's not on the list for 2024, but if we were to add an additional school to that list for 2024, what would the cost be to do that? I'm happy with the report back on that, but.
Through Mr. Chair, schools, traffic calming projects in front of schools are not applicable at this point to the major collector or major arterial roads. We do work closely with the school board on those schools that are raising concerns. So what we'll do is we'll take this back and then take a look at what can we do with the school, including yourself, on the concerns of that particular school. And if there are infrastructure improvement that can be made, we will certainly add it into the next year's budget. It normally does take quite a bit of time to look over the design and the opportunities, work with the school. So it wouldn't be something that we could add to the 2024 budget without knowing the scope and what can we do to help the school with traffic.
Okay, because I believe there was a willingness to waive that restriction that major collectors in front of schools can not have traffic calming, if that was my understanding.
That's also something that staff, the transportation staff is looking at traffic calming relative to the classification of roads. So that is something that we are going to report back to council as well in our next year's update.
Okay, so maybe if I could get a report back just on what might be possible in 2024, because it seems like we're getting a lot of conflicts, seems like a lot of bypass traffic trying to get through that area to avoid a busy intersection. That's, you know, in my calculation, for about an 800-meter stretch, there's only one crosswalk to get to that school. So we're hearing quite a few concerns. So if we could just get a report back on that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you, Chair O'Meara.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Giddings.
Thank you, Chair. Number of questions that I will send in to Jonathan in the interest of time surrounding the cost of disabilities with transit and with DCs. I don't quite understand the math in terms of how that infrastructure will be covered, so I'll send that in detail. Quick question regarding the AI camera use. You've intrigued me, and I can't wait to, I don't want to have to wait to answer the question, ask the question on that one. Is this in a test stage, or is this an off-the-shelf program that is being used by other municipalities?
It is being used by other municipalities. It is in a pilot stage. So we have used it for over a year, and we're looking at the data. With AI, as you know, they need to learn our rules, and they get smarter and smarter as we go. So we did sign up for the contract for the next couple of years, so we could continue to have a parallel process with the AI machine and our staff, and we're making the machine learn. So as I mentioned in my presentation, we are hopeful that as the machine learns all the rules related to the legislation, minimum maintenance standards, over time, they'll see how to detect it, and they could take over some of the work and make our work more efficient.
Continual learning with machines, I love it.
Correct. It'll take time.
So once the machine graduates, I take it, will that be able to report potholes and cracks to say, hey, you know what, it's not in bad shape, but we got a couple of potholes that need fixing, and we can dispatch crews with some cold mix or whatever to fix it up?
Through you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that question. The program that we're using is called Visual Defense. We've been piloting this and working with Visual Defense for the past 2 years and working to enhance that program. So in answer to your question, it really is going to provide that almost information real time through pictures that will be analyzed to understand the pothole dimensions and whether or not it meets the requirements for repair or not. So under our minimum maintenance standards, we have currently road patrol going through and doing this. We've validated a lot of the information by using the AI and optimizing it, and we'll continue to do so. And that is our hope, that as the system sort of grows and graduates with us, then we're able to make sure that we rely on it to create work orders and have it very efficiently done and reduce the amount of staff time to go in and actually pinpoint the location on a tablet and create a work order for us. That could all be automated, which will help.
Which may lead to checking the lines that are painted at stop signs or anything else, whether they need doing, turn the camera sideways to look at the leaf foliage to see if the trees are healthy, you name it. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Giddings. And Councillor Chisholm.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to apologize because I'm going to get into the weeds on this one with respect to a specific question at the staff level. Commissioner Fu, you indicated that your FTEs, you're including a new FTE for, and you went over it very quickly, and my apologies for my slow listening skills. It was with something with ditches and culverts. Is that correct?
Yes, through you, Chair. We have created a brand new program this year under capital for $1.4 million to have a maintenance program for the minor, I'll say, right-of-way assets. So it does include the ditches, small storm sewers, noise walls, fences. And what that program does, will have 2 FTEs, 1 project leader and 1 inspector, that we will carry out this program to ensure that we could look at if there's problematic areas for such as ditches.
So what I assumed, because we have challenges as always with gray and green infrastructure, that this individual or this candidate, whoever is hired in this position, will have a good background with respect to green infrastructure and how it works in relation to doing I think what you're telling me is an operational type design program, but I think it's important that when we're looking at the FTEs, that we look at the background is having a highly qualified green infrastructure background.
Through Chair, the program is more of a maintenance and operational programs, as you mentioned. It's not a redesign of a road, or that will create its own capital project as we do with some other locations. So the folks that will be hired will be a project manager to manage the program, which will create a list will be created through asset management, and then they will ensure that the maintenance of these locations are being carried out. So it's not a design piece, and it wouldn't be changing the road profile or design including green infrastructure. That is another component, and it's more extensive. That's where we hire the consultants, internal resources. It's not within this particular program.
Not to debate it, my suggestion is that whoever we put in this position has an understanding of how it works. You get the direction from your consultants and from town staff, but I think it's important that they understand why we're doing it this way through the maintenance programs. I think that's very important. So I just leave it as that. Thank you.
Definitely, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Hazzathiel.
Sorry, Chair O'Meara. I don't need an answer today, but I do want to flag it. Automated speed enforcement, under which commission would answer the questions around the additional expenses that are noted in the budget? Because there's multiple lines with well over $500,000+ in expense on the budget, which I just can't correlate to earlier presentations that talk about breaking even on ASE. So if somebody could come back next time and talk to us about that, I'd appreciate it. And then my other is, I've always been an advocate that we need to invest in traffic calming and the PXOs, and I'm thrilled for that, but I'm not understanding the 4 additional headcount in transportation engineering around traffic calming. And so if somebody could speak to that as well at some point, I'd appreciate that.
I could definitely will come back with the overall ASC program because it does span over program areas, so it's very hard to summarize. So we'll summarize that for you. In terms of the staffing, the traffic calming program is only having two, it's not 4, there's 2 FTEs that was approved by council from a contract perspective about, I would say, a year ago for a 2-year contract. And because of the expansion and the vastness of the traffic calming program, we are just converting those 2 positions into a full-time FTE. So it's not 4, but 2.
Okay, so thank you for clarifying that for me. I'd still like to understand further how that advances our timeliness in addressing traffic calming requests, considering we've made changes to the traffic calming protocol multiple times now. The investment in traffic calming is important. If it's necessary and gets us to the right place, I'm just concerned that we have a new protocol which hopefully eliminates an extra step in the process and allows us to get to, let's put in place some bumps and some, other elements of traffic calming. That's where the money needs to go. And we need to get on the ground and help people get answers to, yes, the street is moving quickly, but not necessarily at the warrant level, but there are things we can do to slow your street down. That's where I'd like to see the money go.
We could certainly provide an overview of the traffic calming program along on the resourcing requirements.
Thank you. Councilor Chisholm, are you good for round 2 here?
Yes, my apologies I had a second question, and it's just a note of information with respect to how we're going to deal with this through the Active Transportation Master Plan or the Transportation Master Plan. Where we're having challenges, and I think a lot of us have realized this, is with the electric scooters and cars and motorcycles and coming on the scene, and they're on sidewalks or on roadways. I'm hoping that we look at that as part of the master plans, how we're going to deal with this with coordination with enforcement, coordination with Halton Regional Police, but it is becoming a real challenge in our ward. Matter of fact, I almost hit one scooting across, going about 20 kilometers an hour in an intersection, coming off the street and going against a red. So anyways, that's something for consideration. Unless you have any comments on that, Commissioner Fu, I'd like to hear that and what we're going to do that in the master plans. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to confirm the policy and what's allowed and what's not allowed on a road or not on a road related to electric scooter is part of the Transportation Master Plan scope, and it will come back to council for approval from a policy and associate bylaw perspective.
Councillor McNeese.
My apologies, Chair. Just one other question to Commissioner Fu. Just early on in your presentations when you went over the ward feedback, so the one-way stretch on Bronte Road from Lakeshore to Marine, you mentioned pre, during, and post-evaluation. I just wanted to clarify, is that evaluation to see if that form functions better for that street post-construction? Is that why you're doing the evaluation?
Through Mr. Chair, when you make a street from 2-way to 1-way, there will be traffic pattern changes. People have to find different ways to either traditionally get out from that street and they have to go another way. So the pre, post, and during, we will be doing traffic counts for the entire area, so we could have a understanding of where people are coming and going and what are some of the constraints. So it's more of a traffic analysis. It's not necessarily a urban design, landscape design, because if the results of the traffic analysis determine that it's more efficient to be one way, then there will be a full-on design exercise that will go into the form and function piece. It's more about the traffic changes in the area and how it impacts it.
Okay, and I just ask if that can include the intersection of Bronte and Lakeshore, because there's a lot of concern with these blind left turns and things that the one-way eliminates. So I think this sort of pilot period's great to evaluate it, but I'd hope that if it's working better, it can become permanent as well and not have to switch back to two-way and then switch back to one-way again. So thanks for that clarity.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Fu, for that. I don't think we have any more questions at this point. So we are going to have Director Nchasi come and give a presentation on the Windrow program now. Thank you very much, Director, and the floor is yours.
Good morning, Chair O'Meara and members and Mayor, members of Council. In response to the 2024 Budget Subcommittee public consultation feedback from Ward 7, requesting a report to Budget Committee on a windrow snow removal service, I'm here to present the staff report providing details on a town-wide windrow clearing program from the Roads and Works Operations Department. This is further to item 5.1 on the agenda. This presentation will focus on 5 main items as outlined on this agenda. I'll begin with a high-level review of the existing service levels on our roadways, primary, secondary, and residential roads, followed by a jurisdictional scan of neighboring municipalities. I'll provide an overview of the current seniors windrow program, and then discuss the possible implementation of a town-wide windrow clearing program and associated level of service and cost, should it be considered. A number of photos will be showcased towards the end of the presentation to illustrate the expected common complaints that will likely be received from the general public and as related to the driveway windrows. Now, first, for the review of the existing winter maintenance service levels. The Council approved levels of service for winter maintenance for our primary, secondary, and residential roads is highlighted on the slide. The town's current winter maintenance service requires clearing of municipal roadways based on a tiered level of service and does not include windrow service townwide. Our primary and secondary roads are always plowed first, and that's to make sure our emergency vehicles can pass safely throughout our town. Residential streets and laneways are plowed only after snow accumulates in excess of 7.5 centimeters. When all residential roads require clearing, they are to be completed within 24 hours after the end of the storm. Next, for a scan of other municipalities and how Oakville compares, of the nearby municipalities that were scanned, 2 municipalities, Richmond Hill and Vaughan, do offer a citywide windrow clearing program. I'd like to mention that Toronto does offer the program, but only to select areas in Etobicoke, North York, and Scarborough. Other municipalities, for example, Hamilton, Barrie, London, Ottawa, do not offer any type of windrow program. We also looked at Brampton, Burlington, Markham, Milton, and Oakville, including Oshawa. We did note that they do offer a limited program for eligible residents only. Now, of the municipalities that do provide citywide windrow clearing, there are variations. These range from 4 to 13 hours to complete the clearing of full driveways. Like Richmond Hill being a notable example, versus a partial driveway width like the city of Vaughan. The municipalities that provide selective windrow programs also have variations and range in eligibility requirements, from application to geographic areas, to other items, including timeline to complete and delivery of the windrow service versus providing a grant. Staff did use the municipality scan to develop an Oakville-specific windrow analysis. Now, I would like to note that City of Burlington recently, as of their September 26 budget meeting, did approve a fee-for-service windrow pilot for up to 1,000 homes in the amount of $125 plus HST per driveway for the entire season. Next, I'll briefly review our current subsidized windrow program. First, let's define a windrow, just for everybody's sake. A windrow is the pile of snow that's at the bottom of a driveway after our snow plows have cleared the road. I have noted that windrow clearing is not a mandatory service that's normally provided, and the Municipal Act does not require a municipality to clear the snow windrows. Now, Oakville currently does provide townwide windrow does not provide townwide driveway snow windrow clearing service. In 2008, however, Council did approve an implementation of an annual program to remove the driveway windrows for senior citizens and physically challenged people, individuals, for an annual user fee. Some of the details that are highlighted on our website include eligibility criteria, so a resident needs to be 65 years of age or older, or be a resident with a physical disability or medical condition, or has no able-bodied person under the age of 65 living with them. The time for the service, again, we do initiate the windrow removal for those registrants only after completion of the residential and laneway winter maintenance activities. Action usually takes about 24 hours, or we do action it after the residential roads have been completed in 24 hours, and it takes about 12 hours to complete. The windrow clearing area, we look at 80% of the driveway width to be cleared, and that's really to ensure that there's no damage to the curb or sod. The user fee, as highlighted here, will be for the 2023-2024 season about $115, and the projected increase in 2024 to 2025 season will be $106 per driveway. The annual budget is about $67,300, and that's based on 450 registrants that were actually signed up last year. The 2023 program cost, again, equates to about $150 per benefiting property. This results in a subsidy amount of about a third, or $48 per benefiting property. Now for a discussion on a proposed town windrow clearing program service levels. On this slide, I wanted to highlight what is included and what is not included as it relates to the applicability in the program. So as we have found, it's about 55,000 residential driveways that are located on primary, secondary, and residential roads. And these are included in a proposed program. But please note, we are not including driveways on private roads, private laneways, industrial or commercial properties, or high-rise properties. Now, with respect to service initiation, this road clearing will be initiated based on the snow accumulations as highlighted on this chart. For example, primary and secondary roads will receive winter control at 2.5 centimeters and 5 centimeters respectively. However, the windrow clearing service would be initiated only if 7.5 centimeters is reached after the snow event ends, regardless of the classification of the road. We do expect that complaints will be received, as the road windrows would be left behind and will not be cleared in the event of anything less than 7.5 centimeters. An example, just to further illustrate this, would be if we received only 5 centimeters of snow accumulations, the road will be plowed, but the windrow left from the road plow will not be cleared, as the program only starts when we reach the 7.5 centimeter threshold. Again, therefore, the 7.5 centimeters is the key. Once it's reached, we have 12 hours to complete the windrow clearing. On this slide, I wanted to highlight a sample timeline for the windrow clearing program, and one that demonstrates the rolling finish concept we introduced. We would not wait, of course, for 24 hours to start the windrow. Although we do have 12 hours to complete the service, windrow will start as soon after, or will start soon after each route is cleared, such that the service does comply with a rolling finish timeline. In this fashion, we hope to clear all the windrows within 12 hours after the snowplows passed. So windrows will be completed by no later than in hour 36 for the last route, as you see on the slide, but much earlier for each of the previous routes. And again, I want to reiterate that it's only initiated when 7.5 centimeter threshold is reached. For the clearing width, a town-wide windrow clearing or opening service will only clear the windrow for a maximum of 1 car width, approximately 3 meters of the driveway, and that's at the curb to eliminate the driveway blockage, but it does not provide for an edge-to-edge clearing of the driveway windrows. Now, snow cleared from the residential driveways will be pushed to one end of the driveway by the specialized equipment and stored in the space between houses in the boulevard. This picture highlights the condition expected for the snowbanks where space is limited between homes. The town windrow clearing service does not include clearing snowbanks, conducting any type of snow removal operations between the houses. Snowpack is a hard-packed snow that's on our roadway, and it is a condition that can be expected on residential roads as well. I would like to highlight that we will not clear to bare pavement as part of the windrow clearing program. Again, implementing a full-scale town-wide residential windrow clearing program is a large-scale operation, and it does carry significant financial and service level commitments. To summarize the town windrow service levels, these are provided on this slide. I will not bore you with the details, but maybe I'll do some highlights. So again, 55,000 residential driveways that are located on primary, secondary, and residential roads. There will be no consideration for opting out of the service allowed should the program be recommended to proceed townwide. Windrows service would be initiated only if 7.5 centimeters is reached, and that's once the snow event ends, regardless of the classification of the road. The windrow will be cleared within 12 hours after all roads have been plowed. Although the town will have 12 hours to complete the service, we will start soon after each area is cleared and continue with the rolling finish timeline. The town service will only clear the windrow for a maximum 1 car width, about 3 meters in width of the driveway, and that's to eliminate any driveway blockages. And it will not provide any edge-to-edge clearing of the driveway. If a town-wide windrow clearing is implemented, we expect the senior windrow application process will stop, and that the 80% driveway clearing service level will not continue. Further, windrows caused by sidewalk plowing are not included in the town-wide windrow clearing service, and a windrow, as a result of the sidewalk plow, would be the responsibility of the property owner as it is now. Now, for the snow cleared from residential driveways, it will have to be pushed to one side of the driveway, and it will need to be stored in the space between the houses in the boulevard. Town windrow clearing service will not include clearing any snowbanks or conducting any type of snow removal operations, and we do expect that this will generate a significant number of complaints because of the lack of space to push the snow or snowbank created by town windrow program. Finally, the town service will clear the windrow to a packed snow level about 1 to 2 inches and will not be cleared to bare pavement. Residents would need to complete the remaining windrow clearing themselves on their driveway, as well as clear to bare pavement if it is desired. The cost of providing this program, it is definitely significant. It's estimated at approximately $2.6 million. It represents about 37.2% of the 2023 winter control budget. In addition to our equipment requirements and the coordination and timing of such an operation, we will require additional seasonal staff in order to coordinate the equipment operation, inspection, parking control, bylaw, and to address what we expect to be a very high customer service demands associated with providing the service. This also includes coordination with Service Oakville and parking enforcement. The annual program cost includes a number of part-time operational technicians, inspectors, seasonal municipal compliance officers, and part-time Service Oakville staff. The timeline required for implementation is a little bit of, it's about 12 to 18 months, and that is to allow for the procurement to proceed, for a contractor to be secured, and to prepare all necessary specialized equipment. Assuming approval of funding for this program as part of our 2024 budget, this program would be ready to start in 2025-2026 winter season. The next section is really to discuss and to manage the expectations of our Oakville residents. We prepared these to demonstrate the level of service of the Windrow program and showcase photos to highlight examples of common resident complaints expected to be received following Windrow clearing, and for your reference. The town Windrow service will not be equal to a private driveway clearing service. It is expected that resident expectations will be difficult to manage. Complaints on timeliness, quality, and extent of the Windrow clearing will take place. Now, some of the most common complaints we expect to be received after delivering a town Windrow program include parking, again, impact to service levels if we find, as per the first picture, parked vehicles adjacent to or on the driveway preventing our Windrow service delivery. Timeliness, so that's the time when Windrow is cleared after a plow is perceived to be too long. Quality-related comments, so residents' unrealistic expectations to, or, similar to a private driveway clearing service with respect to any leftover windrows from clearing and clearing to bare pavement. Now, on the slide, there's potential other issues. So you can see on the first one, dense driveway spacing with little or no space for snow storage could be a cause for complaints. Similarly, requests on why the full driveway was not cleared. Inquiries on why the sidewalk resultant windrow is not cleared. And some locations within the town of Oakville have minimal boulevard width or curb face sidewalk. Again, offers very little or no space for snow storage, and this could present additional challenges. And finally, damage to driveway aprons, landscaping, and private property could result in increased claims. So one of the items that I just wanted to highlight as well is that we want to manage the residents' expectations, and the only way to do so is to carefully manage through a comprehensive education and communication plan to ensure resident expectations are clearly met and clearly explained about our service level and through education. Now, on the slide, I've put in an alternative option, again, expanding the existing Windrow program that we currently have. Similar to what City of Burlington just passed, this option, again, eliminates all eligibility requirements and makes the program available to any resident, regardless of their physical ability or age. To accommodate this, the anticipated increase in registrations, it is proposed the program size be expanded to 1,100 driveways. In order to maintain the intent of the original program, priority will be given to past registrants, so those are the 450 that previously registered, as well as those who are physically unable to clear their windrow. The town would continue to outsource the service, and through preliminary discussions with our vendor, we believe the service expansion could potentially be implemented for 2023-2024 winter season, starting in January. This service response time would not change from the existing service level, and windrows will be still cleared within 12 hours after the road has been plowed. And I've just highlighted that the project cost estimate for this expanded program would be about $130,000 and result in a user fee for January, potentially in the amount of $118 per driveway. So thank you, Chair O'Meara and members of council for listening to this presentation. I'm happy to take any questions at this point.
Thank you very much, Director, for that. And you have garnered some questions here. I just want to make committee members aware. I know that we're going to lose a few of you to Conservation Halton just after 12. The CAO has asked before you leave that we take a quick little break to work on a date for next week so that we can do this. So I'm going to take the questions on this topic, and then we're going to have a quick 5-minute break so staff can get together because I think they want input from everybody who's here. So just setting the playing field here. So first we have Councillor Giddings.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, quick question regarding the way you came up with the numbers. That's based on the average number of snow events of 2.5 centimeters. It could be above that, it could be below it in terms of real life, correct?
That is correct. We had to make assumptions based on previous years, and we looked at potentially 5 events that we experienced for windrow removal last year, and based our analysis on this, plus any previous iterations that we've seen through the years.
And you anticipate this would be staff-based, not contracted out like the current windrow program?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this would be externally contracted out. It's just, it requires a lot of resources and equipment that we don't currently own or have.
And your report was very clear in terms of some of the limitations and caveats that we should think about deeply on this.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, we wanted to make sure that we outline all the possible responses that we'd receive from the public if we do attempt a pilot.
All right, quick question on the costing. Richmond Hill, same number of houses, 13 hours, $4.5 million. Vaughan, 84,000 houses, a third of the time at half the money. Are these guesstimates?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So we did look at in detail Richmond Hill and Vaughan. Vaughan has had a 2016 contract that was initiated. Based on that, we looked at they published their numbers, so we know that that's the cost of $2.1 million to run this program. We also know that they have a very, $2016, if we kind of look at inflation and look at adjusting for today's rates, and once they go out to the market in 2020, I believe it'll be 2026 or 7, we expect that this number will be much higher. Now, when it comes to the city of Richmond Hill, they took this service completely in-house and completed it with about 85 internal staff. This is, again, a huge undertaking. They did it at a very quick pace. And the cost of $4.5 million, again, published information, is based on trying to set up a program with internal equipment and internal resources to actually complete this. Their level of service at 13 hours is to allow them, also with a rolling finish, they start at 2 and 4 hours almost initiating the program at 2 different select times to be able to meet that timing of 50, or they're at almost the same driveway number as we are, 55,000.
All right, thank you for that. And last question, there's nothing we can do to get rid of the snow, so you're going to take the snow from the 80%, push it up into a super windrow that'll freeze in place at the side of the driveway.
Again, through you, Mr. Chair, I want to be realistic. That's why we changed it from 80% to a minimum or a maximum 1-car width, because we want to try to be cognizant of how much snow will be pushed towards, the space between the homes. So it will be pushed. Again, through images, I wanted to make sure that you see we'll not be able to shape, the windrows. We still count on driveway melt or snow melt to happen. So we hope that weather kind of cooperates. But we don't have the amount of resources with 55,000 homes to do snow removal of any kind.
Thank you. The report made it abundantly clear. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Next up, we have Councillor Hernanda. Councillor Hernanda, over to you. Okay, sorry. I've just got my list as the hands go up here. So it's whoever from Ward 7 wants to take the first shot, fire away.
Thank you, Chair Mira. I have a couple of questions. So would you give us some more details about how Toronto make this by geographic area? So, and they do chart include that tax levy and how is operation with that. And also they will be completed this service in 2 hours. How they can make it? Is there any details about that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Councillor, for that question. Again, it is limited, but you have to also know that the amount of, or the general size of City Toronto at 2.5 plus population is difficult to do. So they've focused on areas to try to help some of their residents. I am not sure, I will have to get back, if their response on completing the service and offered in Etobicoke and in North York and only select areas, it's very likely related to properties that are facing priority roads. So arterial roads and others, because they will get much larger windrows. So they have initiated this program, and they are following up fairly quickly right behind their plowing operation. Their cost, again, is high. Just want to make sure. Sorry about that. But I don't have a lot of information based on Toronto. It is, again, considered select, not the full city.
Okay, thank you very much. And during your presentation, so our town will be initiating this service, if possible, that will be only clean 1 car length wide, right? So is there other municipal they do the same? Because I saw some videos they took last year about Wong and Richmond Hill. They do the same. They do the whole driveway.
Again, through you, Mr. Chair. So City of Richmond Hill does do attempt to clear the full driveway width. That is definitely a fact, and it's actually a video that they have posted that they attempt to do so. City of Vaughan, in our conversations, they also do a minimum of, or the 3 meter wide, 1 car length. Again, through the operation itself, it's not an exact science. When we do have either a pickup truck or a loader with a side gate, it will try to do more. But we want to make sure we manage the expectation of the residents that it will be, we want to make sure 1 car width can be cleared so they can come out safely. Otherwise, if we start looking at measuring exactly that it's the full width, with the windrow and the snowbanks that will happen and any fall that comes after the fact, it will be very difficult for us, and the complaints-driven responses that we'll receive will be very high. So we want to make sure we manage that expectation for the residents.
Sorry, I just want to add to, it's a balance between, what we propose is a balance between the timeliness of completion, the extent that you do it. So if you want to clear more driveways, that width, then it'll take a little longer. And then what will happen is then we will have to increase the crews to decrease the time of response. So it's almost a trifecta type of balance beam that we're on, that if you could throw as much resources onto it, so you have a lot less response time if you want to be within that 4 hours. But then if you want to plow more areas, then you need even more resources. We're trying to provide council a balanced approach that has obviously certain limitations, but of course, as you see, Richmond Hill, the cost is quite significant, and certainly their timeliness is similar, but their extent is more. So it's more of a balance. There could be a number of alternative in the one proposal we give you. There could be 10 different ways that we could cut these 3 different areas. I just want to indicate we propose one that we think is fairly reasonable, doable, and incomparable to the municipalities that we have reviewed.
Okay. I saw there's one picture about that, so how we can deal with this no snow storage space, because in our world, the fact is we got a lot of families and driveway, they don't have enough space to store the snow.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think, and Commissioner Fu, if you want to add anything, please let me know. The space constraints, again, these are things that are outside our ability to maintain. So we will do our best to make sure that we clear the windrow, move the snow off the driveway so that people can egress and ingress into their property safely. But the snow removal itself, it's very difficult for us. These are constraints based on the homes, the design, and what was approved. So we're not able to do much for the snow storage location.
Okay, yeah, that will be cause the problem. That's even we do this, provide this service, then we'll be get another complaint because those snow, there's no place, they will falling down again, and they will bury the driveway again.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I do agree. I think that that would be a cause of complaints to be received. And we just have to make sure through education campaign and letting the residents know that this is the expectation that they will have to deal with, just like before. We just are going to help with removing the snow if this program is being considered.
I see, but we do suggest, so when we do this service, whatever, so we considered about our water density is quite different with other ward in our town, and especially those corner house, they will get a lot of stones to block them way. So this is something I suggest we need to think about how we can do in this, even not provide this service, but also when we do the plow. Is some technical skills to pay attention about that? Yeah, this is my suggestion. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just want to add the snow storage situation in a dense neighborhood exists whether with or without the windrow service. I think what we're trying to highlight is if the town is doing windrow opening service, there would just be potentially complaints and expectations further on for town to remove the snow. We want to keep in mind that all the corners, sight lines to ensure safety, if even with a regular road plow, Sam's teams are very diligent to ensure we remove those snow to ensure there's proper sight lines when it gets too high. What we do not do, regardless whether we have windrow service or not, is to remove the snow between the houses that are not necessarily obstructing sight lines and for safety reasons.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Nanda, did you want to speak to this item? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you for your report. It's very clear what's being said in this report, and I do understand where it's coming from, but I do have to make a point of where is this coming from, right? And the reason we're getting so many complaints is it goes back to planning. How was this area planned? You know, because we're not living in Arizona, we live in Canada. So when we say that we are planning, we should be planning for everything, right? And the reason we're getting so many complaints from our residents is what Councillor Chi just said as well. We have safety issues now. We have sightline issues. I faced them in the winter. I faced them last winter where I couldn't get out of my driveway. I couldn't get out of my street. You cannot see left or right, whether you're turning right, whether you're turning left, you cannot see at the end of the streets. And windrow clearing has to be done no matter what, right? Whether the resident has to do it or whether they're asking for services, you know, they're taxpayers, they feel they're taxpayers, they feel like they should receive some kind of service. And really what everyone is upset about is it should be taken into consideration how our area was planned and why they actually want this service. One of the biggest complaints that we got last year was that when residents were clearing their own driveways, the plows are coming by and putting large mountains of windrow in front of their driveway after they've cleared their driveways. So they've cleared their driveways now. They're ready to take their car out, but now a snow plow has come by and put a huge windrow in front of their driveway, and that's even more work for them to remove after they've cleared their driveway. So now we have an issue of they didn't have windrow, but now windrow was put in front of them. So the complaint was, come remove the windrow now because you're the ones that put the windrow there. I'll start off with that and then continue. I'll let you add.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I want to acknowledge, Councilor Nanda, your comments. So I would like to also add at this point that we continuously learn from previous events. And every time we look to continuously improve, we look at making sure we do address what we can and make sure that information is pressed. So I would say,
Let me just jump in. Councilor Nanda, I think I would like to address the second piece where regarding the timing of a individual resident timing of their snow plowing of their driveway versus our winter service for the roads. So we do have a tracker. The tracker allows the resident to see where our plows are going on the road, so they could potentially, hopefully, time their own exercise in terms of when they remove snow. It is very difficult, as you imagine, for our routes to match the individual homeowners' timing of snow plowing their own driveway. So that is a problem, regardless of the windrow program or not, that it will exist. Even with the windrow program, our timing of removing that windrow will not be the same time that perhaps they have done their driveway, which means will remain another set of windrows. So I just want to indicate that is inherent nature of snow removal between the town and between the private residents. So that is something that we cannot possibly coordinate. And I understand that complaint does come in every year when the timing just did not line up to the residents' timing of removing snow.
But so Vaughn's windrow program is one truck follows another truck to clean. That's how they're able to clean it in 4 hours? That you have the snow removal truck and then you have the truck behind that one to clean the windrow? And then they're able to clear 84,000 houses in 4 hours?
So the Vaughn's system is generally the windrow follows the snowplow, but not immediately behind it. So I think there's a visual that everyone thinks there's two trucks going down the road consistent. It doesn't. It's actually the road plow goes away, and then within an X amount of time, the windrow plow comes along. I personally lived in Vaughan, so I actually watched it happen. So it does generally follow. As explained by the director, we are doing something similar. When we finish one route, we will then send out the windrow, so which means we are having a rolling finish. We're not waiting for 12 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours of windrow sitting there. We should have the plow for the windrow out there within the hour. About an hour or two, they should see that plow coming, and that is essentially similar to how Vaughan does it. In terms of 4 hours, it's a little different. As I mentioned earlier, they may have additional trucks, more resources for the timing. So they're not necessarily matching in terms of we can't look at the time to complete versus the sequence of the completion to exact science of for the 4 hours.
Okay. So I think what we're looking at is trying to find some kind of solution. Up in the north, we feel very disadvantaged in terms of this. And again, I'll say it goes back to planning. You know, we planned this area to be more dense, but this I would see as an actual safety issue. You know, living there and knowing that the piles of snow are gonna pile up in the winter, it's a huge safety issue. And I know we had discussed last year what we were talking about, removing some of the snow. I know I had called in a few times to say, beside the parks, in the corners, there's no way to see the sight line to see if a car is coming. Like, you have to inch into almost the middle of the street before you can even see that a car may or may not be coming for you to turn. So we had that discussion last year too, where was it Toronto that did have some snow removal, where they did physically pick up some of the snow and transport it to a different location?
We do have, so through Chair, we do have a snow removal service for any of the sideline issues. We could certainly ensure that we are clearing the location that's of having safety and concerns and dangers, and that is one of the method is for folks to call in to say we can't see beyond that. As you imagine, the whole we do that for the whole town. We do that for every intersection. We have to make sure we check it One of the things that Sam and I have discussed for this year is that we typically start snow removal service after all the plowing is done. What we're thinking is we're going to do something similar like we proposed for the windrows, more of a parallel. As we see that with the snow plow have gone by, we could have sent out someone out there to see the sidelines already obstructed. There's complaints about the sidewalk is now blocked and whatnot, that we could hopefully be a little bit more right behind it. And we start our snow removal service initiating and calling into action earlier. So I think one of the complaints last year was that because we were waiting for the snow plowing exercise to be done, the snow removal service doesn't even start. And that's a very long time for some of the areas. We are going to look at that continuous improvement model to be more efficient and come out for the snow removal service a little bit earlier.
Okay. And I think then the last thing is what Sam had said earlier is then maybe we need to look at this pilot project that Burlington is doing. Maybe we can get more information on that and see how that would assist residents and see, what we can look into. So I don't know if we need to get more of a report on that or more information on that, but maybe that's something we can look into.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you again, Councilor Nanda.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Knoll, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for this report. And before I go into my questions and a couple comments, I just want to say to Sam and his team that last year, your complaint resolution and service quality was exceptional, except for sidewalks knocking off water boxes and tearing up some sod. But there certainly was a good increase last year, and I really appreciated Sam's attention to particularly to the trouble areas in my ward. So I want to start out with a positive, and I promise I won't go negative though. The first, and it's just a comment to Councillor Nanda. Yeah, your area is very dense. I once was a councillor up there, but I got to point out that those of us that represent Ward 4 and 5 and 6, we have highly dense aspects of our ward as well. So some of those problems you're identifying are certainly present. They're certainly present in the northern portions of our wards as well. Zero lot lines, very little front lawns, et cetera. Basically, very similar design to yours. So first question I have for staff is, in the report, you did talk about the fact that that this service would require storing snow on site. I'm assuming, and I would like confirmation that that would only apply to new areas or to areas that don't have laneways, because that would be impossible for laneway communities. I know there's a couple up in Ward 7. We've got 2 laneway communities in Ward 5. I believe there are others elsewhere. But I would like, because there is nowhere, like it's not just a matter of, oh, that was the way the community was designed, so you sort of have to live with it. The reality is that we approved it, or our predecessors approved it, and there is nowhere to store that snow. And it does become not just a safety problem, but basically it becomes impassable after a certain point. So can you confirm that should this program proceed, and based on the way you've scoped it out, you would still remove snow from laneways?
Through you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Councillor Knoll, first for the good comments, and really I appreciate it myself. What I can answer for this particular question is laneways will continue as they are being done. So we would be focused on making sure that the laneways are cleared. As we discussed, we've increased our budget, for instance, from 1 to 2 pickups in terms of for laneways and snow removal. So that's going to be to accommodate, again, more of the laneway and some of the concerns that we've had. But I would suggest at this point that the laneways would be, for the windrows, we would continue doing what we're doing, which is actually remove those snow for those driveways, and we push it again to the areas in between. We would look at to make sure as part of our snow removal that if we hit anything close to that 35 centimeter threshold, that we are initiating things much earlier and at a more quicker frequency. So at least we've accommodated for 2 at this point.
Just want to reinforce, sorry, Councillor, just want to reinforce, the windrow program as proposed does not apply to laneways. The operations that Sam described is what we do right now, and it will continue. So what we propose as the townwide windrow program is not applicable to laneway operations.
So oh, okay, hold on. So you wouldn't remove windrows in laneways?
No, so
As
in
part of,
laneways right now, we currently plow the laneways and then we
right,
come for a snow removal program
right,
because we can't
right,
leave anything there.
right,
So
right.
the way that we have been doing laneways in the past and enhancement to that is going to continue as part of the regular road plowing
Okay,
program.
okay.
This particular program is for individual residential homes that has driveways that are
Right.
not in a laneway.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I just have to re-clarify what you're saying. So I get that you're going to remove the snow from laneway communities, but when you say this program is not for laneway communities also deal with windrows. So are you suggesting that you wouldn't do the windrows if, or you're not counting on doing the windrows as part of this program in laneways?
Yeah, a little bit, like we would push.
No, okay. Just explain the service level. You still leave that little piece in front of the driveway because you can't.
Okay, so Councillor Knoll, I know we need maybe a bit additional discussion. Through you, Mr. Chair. So one of the things that we have to look at is the configuration in a laneway and some of the homes that are there. We know that the space between the homes is fairly close, and we worry about damage to the garages, you know, because they're about setback of 1.5 meters, so it's not a lot of space. That's what I think Commissioner Fu is trying to convey. It is a little bit tougher to do. We would make sure at the end that our normal service that we provide and enhanced service that we want to make sure that we provide to laneways will address as best as we can the concerns in those communities. But it will, at this point, really be focused more on the residential homes. The laneways will have, again, the service levels that we will improve as part of continuous improvements.
Sorry.
Okay, so,
Yeah, so we, Councillor, we would
there's
not
always a
be
part two.
removing.
There's always a part
Yeah,
two.
I apologize. It is a complex matter, as you can tell. Different situation, different house configurations. We will not be removing that 1 meter that we typically leave right in front of that garage door. As we, with laneways, our equipment cannot get that close to that the garage door. So the windrow that's left behind in the regular laneway snow removal operations and clearing operations, that windrow will be left behind because our equipment cannot get into the finesse of hand shoveling to that garage door, and we do not would like to not to increase the damage potentially that could cause to that garage door. So that very last meter or so that we typically leave will be left. It will have to be hand shoveled by the resident. So that is how the laneway operations would be remaining pretty much exactly the same.
Okay, so I clearly have a major problem with that because one of the issues with laneway communities, and I don't want to drag all my colleagues through this laneway discussion because it's not applicable to all of you. So maybe I will have more of this conversation offline. But one of the bigger issues we have with laneways, of course, is the fact that there is no place to put the snow. So even if a resident is able-bodied enough to remove the hard pack ice that gets scraped off the town streets, there often is no place to put that snow. And so we end up having members of laneway communities who are often stuck in, their cars are stuck in their homes for days at a time. Those of us that are lucky to live, I live in a laneway community and I live in a flankage lot. So there's always somewhere for me to put my snow. But if you're in the middle of the lane block, sometimes those folks don't get cleared out at all. So I'd like to know a little bit more about this, and perhaps I'll speak to some of my colleagues in Richmond Hill and Vaughan, because I know that Vaughan in particular has a very large laneway community, and I'd like to learn more about how they manage that. So I'll move on for now, but I reserve the right to ask more questions and have further conversation with you about that. I do want to make a comment though. One of the things you seem to come up over and over again in your presentation is that there'll be a spat of complaints. And while I get that, no matter what service we offer, there's going to be complaints. But I mean, right now, I don't know about my colleagues, but I live in fear when I see snow falling on the ground because I know that my phone is going to start ringing and my emails are going to start loading up with people complaining left, right, and center. I suspect that your complaints will be substantially less with this program than without. So while the complaints will be different and we know we'll need to react to those ones differently, I think that we'll be doing ourselves a big favor. I just so curiously on the current program we have now, the on-demand subscription program we have now with up to 450 homes per year. How many do we not approve? So if we have a limit of 450, how many are applied for and not granted? Because I'm pretty sure we're oversubscribed every year, or we have the potential of being oversubscribed every year. I'm just curious what the current demand is even for that program.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and thank you again for that question, Councillor Knoll. It's at this point in time, it's open for registrants. This is what we received. This is a number, about 450 or 455 last year.
I see. Okay.
Currently, we have it open. It's on our website. It closes November 17th. And again, I can provide an update of how many applicants have come through. But it does vary from year to year. And typically, it ranges between, I would say, anywhere from 300 to about 450 is what we've seen so far.
So I misunderstood that 450 number is not a cap. It's what the average is that you're getting. Okay, that's
that
great.
Is correct.
But of course, with the proviso that you have to provide documentation of your physical issue, or you have to be over 65.
That is correct. That is the, through you, Mr. Chair, that is the eligibility criteria. If I've actually went online yesterday just to make sure that how it works. It's an online application. You're able to put check mark that you meet one of the criteria or multiple criteria, and then you go in to pay directly on either Interac or online by credit card. So it's a very well put system. It's very inclusive. I would say that the eligibility criteria is subject to, of course, the honesty of the person that is applying, and usually it's not something that we're auditing. It's people apply and we just make sure that it goes through. It's just there is time limits and limitations because we have to prepare the program, make sure the maps are ready, make sure a contractor knows where they are, and then we can address it quickly.
Yeah, I get that. So the website, because I have it open too, it says that the documentation may be required. So you're not necessarily requiring the documentation?
I mean, the onus is on the resident to be forthcoming with that information.
Okay. When you, Councillor Grant and myself and you, and I believe Councillor Fu spoke a few months ago about these topics, one of the things that we raised is, and I know everybody has this issue, is the mountains on corners. And I know we're talking about windrow removal, but it's kind of a similar situation. The mountains that occur on corners, impeding the ability of pedestrians to be able to go back and forth, particularly children getting to school without climbing Mount Roxton or Mount Trafalgar. Has there been any movement towards enhancing service to make pedestrian ways safer?
Again, through you, Mr. Chair. Councillor Knoll, what we have done based on our conversations is look operationally, I'm not going to bore you with the details, but we did go through and look at how we can enhance and improve sightline issues. So that'll be a high priority for us, and making sure that these are addressed, for all townwide constituents, and particularly to make sure that anything towards sidewalks or blockage, so that the kids are not climbing them or putting themselves in harm's way. So we will be focused this year to make sure that we are addressing it in a more expeditious fashion.
That's fantastic. Thank you. This one probably it may not be in your jurisdiction. It may be something we have to talk to Jim Barry about. But those of us that have private condominiums in our wards, and I know I'm not speaking for others, but I do know that in our particular ward, we have a couple private condominiums that, although they agreed during site plan that they would manage their own snow storage, they simply just push the snow out and they cover up sidewalks and they leave mountains on the streets. I know that a couple of our condos in Ward 5, and Jim's here, a couple of our condos in Ward 5 have actually, I think they treat it as a cost of doing business to pay the fines. Is there anything we can do to either remove those and bill back automatically a huge marked up price, or is there anything we can do about that? Because it is, again, it's a pedestrian issue. I've watched, small children who probably with great glee climb over these hills to go to school, but they're also, it's also a safety issue for them, and also for sight lines you can't often see around the corners. So is there anything else we can do about this to avoid it becoming simply a cost of doing business for these condo or associations?
And through you, Mr. Chair, I don't want to speak on behalf of Mr. Barry, but I know that we've worked very closely. And at the end of the day, when issues do come up, I see Jim here. If issues do come up, we typically are making sure that our municipal enforcement colleagues intervene fairly quickly and we hold them accountable. Part of what we can do from operations is that we identify these as we see them. So as in when we do and conduct our inspection through our supervisory team, they're paying attention to these exact locations. And I'll stop here in case Mr. Barry wants to say anything.
Thank you very much, and to you, Mr. Chair. I think, Councillor, you're absolutely right. These are problematic, and we've dealt with them fairly regularly over the years. Unfortunately, there's not really a way to clear and bill back because there is an evidentiary process, and we do have to go through the proper bylaw enforcement steps. But I think what we do need to do, and we are aware of this for this year, is making sure, as Sam says, get to these properties as quickly as possible and escalate enforcement. We have some escalated penalties. And it may require us to actually go to court. It's unfortunate that we'd have to take up court time to deal with something like this, but I suspect that's the way you actually make an impression rather than just a fine penalty because there is no real way to clean it up and bill back.
Is there any way to change our bylaws, or is this simply provincial, the SPPA or the POA? Like, where does this roadblock, no pun intended, come from? Is it statutory or is it bylaw? And could we change it?
To you, Mr. Chair, I really believe it's statutory. It's at the burden of proof. We have to prove to somebody that they've committed the offense, and thus the penalty follows.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody, for your answers. For what it's worth, I do support moving forward with some kind of windrow cleaning service. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I do appreciate the answers. I have more questions, but I'll take those offline because they mostly relate to some specific communities. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, staff.
Thank you very much, Councillor. So I had Councillor Grant's hand up, but it's not anymore. I'm not sure if he still wants to go. And then Councillor China. And then we were going to take a couple of minute break here. So Councillor Grant, do you still want to speak, or are you good?
No, my questions were answered, and anything I have is actually site specific, so I can do that offline as well. Perfect.
Thank you so much. So we'll get Councillor Lischina, and then we'll take a couple minutes here just to figure out our next steps forward. We'll come back and we'll go from there. So Councillor Lischina.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. After reading this report and the presentation, I am not supportive of town-wide windrow cleaning. I think it will open up a Pandora's box. But what I am concerned, though, so first of all, when Commissioner Fu had mentioned that they're going to look at being more proactive about the sightline areas, we know where those problems are. Every year we get residents calling and saying, this is a problem again. Why is this a reactive process in the sense of I need to call in that people can't get around this corner and that kind of thing? So I think that's where we have to spend our energy when it comes to safety of and sight lines. So we have a huge list. Those should be basically looked at right away, not till all the plowing is done and the rest of it. So that's my little point there. Regarding the program we have currently for seniors and people with disabilities, I think it's a great program. I don't think we market it enough. I think we need to actually improve that program because those are the people that need that the most. The ones that are calling in saying, I can't get to my doctor because of my inability to get out of my driveway because of their disability or whatever else is happening with them. So my point on that one is that we need to do a better service that we currently have for those residents. And again, the 450, I think is on the low side. I think there are probably people who basically have in the past weren't as pleased because they actually did end up getting private contractors to come and do the job because the one that we had wasn't as good. So I think that's where we need to concentrate if we're going to spend any further money on this. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Okay, so with that, thank you for the presentation. It's 11:49 by my watch. We're going to take a 5-minute bio break. Everybody back here at 11:55. We're going to work on a timeline to report back. And I know you have to go. Okay, well, can we? Well, that, we just have to talk, sorry, Mr. Mayor.
I had to get Outlook's monthly view up, get the microphone on. We have scheduled budget meetings to hear public delegations on the 31st of October. Yes, the 31st of October. And I wish this thing would scroll back up 1 week. Anyway, where I'm headed with this is there's 3 days in a row, the 31st of October, the 1st of November, and the 2nd of November, when classically, we don't get a lot of time. Those meetings are not classically very long. There's a lot of time available there. I would suggest 3 days worth of time for questions and debate, culminating on the 2nd, according to the plan, with council's recommendation to the mayor. That's the process that we've been given by the province. And so I think we're good if we refocus our thinking around what we're doing on the days we set aside for the public delegations.
No, I concur. I think it's important though, just if councilors or committee members have stuff when we get it into staff so that they're properly prepared to respond on the 31st and the 1st, I think is what we're looking at here. And then you're right, I think we can take that time on those days and go. So,
and Mr. Chair, you are so right on, so right on. It benefits everybody if we send staff our questions in advance. It doesn't, you know, it's inevitable for a staffer to feel kind of ambushed if they don't know the question's coming. We get much better answers if we alert them as to what our question is. It's just a great practice. Thank you for recommending.
Yeah, no, so it's a Thursday. If by next Wednesday, that gives staff a good input. If we can commit as a council to aggregate your questions, your comments, your concerns through the budget book, have them into Jonathan and Delabar by next Wednesday, and then the following week we will carve out time to address those. Staff can respond and we can go from there. Is that fair for everyone, Madam CAO?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I'd actually ask if perhaps it could come in before Wednesday. An agenda for the meeting on the 30th would go out on the 26th. We could maybe push it to the 27th. If they come in on the Wednesday, it doesn't give us much time to put that information together. So perhaps if they could come in Tuesday or even Monday at the end of the day, that would be very helpful to us, or as early as you can get it in.
No problem. So please feel free to submit it at any point up to Tuesday, and then staff can get it in there and get that time done. I think that's fair. Okay, so I guess I would ask Commissioner Bell how long she thinks the presentation is, whether we should break and get some to eat now, and we can let our colleagues go to Conservation Halton and then come back for the commissioner's presentation. Is that fair, committee members? Okay, so we've got 11:50 right now. So if we come back at 12:30, is that a good enough time for everyone to take a?
Just need 10 minutes to get the food out.
No problem. And staff just need a little bit of time to get some food ready for us. So we're going to call a recess now. We'll meet back at 12:30 here. Okay? Thank you. Okay, welcome back, committee members. Thank you very much for that and for coming back on time here. We are going to resume our committee meeting with Commissioner Bell, our Commissioner of Community Services. And Commissioner, the floor is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to express my delight that I'm able to present today and not tomorrow. So I'm very pleased about that. So it is with great pleasure and delight that I present the Community Services Commission 2024 operating and capital budgets. In response to Councillor Lischina, I wanted to identify the tabs on which you can find the information for our commission. So under tab 11 is Recreation and Culture, 12 is the Oakville Public Library, 13 is Emergency Services and Fire, 16 is Parks and Open Space, 17 is Harbors, and 18 is Cemeteries. So under the gross operating budget, we're looking at $153 million, which represents 34% of the overall corporate budget. And the net operating is $107 million, which represents 41% of the budget. Our gross operating budget is broken down in the following way, with emergency services representing 31%, recreation and culture at 28%, parks and open space at 20%, and then from the net perspective, 43% is emergency services, 22% is parks and open space, and 20% is recreation and culture. When we look at it from council priorities, 78% of our operating budget is committed to the advancement of community belonging, which is totally appropriate given that we're community services, and 22% is for environmental sustainability. On the capital side, we are looking at 54% for environmental sustainability, whether it is in our parks and open space or in our facility side. 26% is community belonging, and 18% is growth management. 2023 was a very exciting year for our commission, and there's sort of three main areas that I really wanted to focus on. The first one is the level of engagement that we enjoyed with our Oakville residents. Through our public consultations for the 16-mile recreation and library programming, we had a hugely engaged and enthusiastic group that came out and shared their ideas and feedback. The public consultation for Parks Rec Library Master Plan and the Fire Master Plan has been outstanding. The development of the Community Activation Grant Program, we got a lot of great feedback there as well. Participation rates in our Blaze Academy camps was fantastic again this year, as run by our fire services. And we also had unprecedented numbers with respect to the number of people who responded to our customer service surveys after they completed all of our programs. So combined, we were looking at approximately 11,000 people, 11,000 submissions that were sent in with residents wanting to tell us how we were doing, what their hopes and dreams are for the future of the community, and how they have changed their behavior patterns since COVID. In addition to that, we also spent a lot of time working on the development of new community infrastructure, whether it's a detailed design for Fire Station 9. We're all extremely excited that we've started the construction for the 16-mile community center and library, and by the end of this year, we'll have finished phase 1 for the outdoor amenities. So our cricket club and a number of our sports groups are already starting a countdown to the opening of those fields next spring. In addition to that, we also launched the PINK project in all of our facilities, and that includes our year-round washrooms. In the spring, we will be adding to the inventory as well, and we were very proud to partner on that project. The new Cornwall Road Skateboard Park is being enjoyed by skaters of all ages every day, regardless of weather. And I would be extremely remiss if I didn't highlight sport tourism. We had two major events at 16 Mile Sports Complex. The televised Curling Canada's Points Bet Invitational that was highly successful. We're already in preliminary discussions about future opportunities. And we're very proud to announce we're going to be hosting the World Junior Hockey Recruitment Camp again. We did one right before COVID, and it's coming up again December 10th to the 15th. One thing I really wanted to showcase here. So these are nationally televised events with national organizations with international reputations. They are choosing to hold their events at 16 Mile Sports Complex. The uniqueness of this situation is that complex is currently sitting in the middle of two major construction sites, which impacts parking and logistical planning and all of those things. The staff did such an outstanding job that the curling coverage actually highlighted the fact that we were expanding that particular facility and that there was such a seamless customer service experience that they didn't even notice. So I really wanted to do a shout out to Todd Carey and the entire team there for representing Oakville in such an outstanding way. We also completed the town tree inventory this year in anticipation of the iTree work we're going to do next year. We developed a new corporate security plan for the first time. I did want to highlight, as Commissioner Garvey did highlight the fact I was not at the September 6th meeting due to vacation. So I did want to speak to the security plan and what the intent is behind the security plan. As some councillors rightly observed, they do not want our facilities to become fortresses and difficult to get into and seen as not welcoming to our public. We want exactly the reverse, to be quite honest. We want our public to enjoy all of our facilities, including Town Hall. We want them to attend our special events. We want them to attend all of our programming. But we want them to feel safe when they're doing it and that they're in a safe and secure environment. So that's what the intent behind the security plan is. Our fire team really focused on mental health and delivered a Resilient Minds training program for the entire team, which was very well received. A highlight here is the renovations of Fire Station 1 and 2 to promote a greater sense of inclusion. This is really a significant set of projects from a renovation standpoint and from an inclusion diversity standpoint. The fire services have gone in terms of gender split from 3% to 13% in a really short period of time, we're incredibly proud of that. We are also, as a result, becoming national leaders in this particular area. So as a result of the increase in the number of female firefighters, we have renovated the dormitory areas to ensure a greater sense of privacy for our female firefighters. So we're very proud of that. And then the last piece is that we implemented the Consolidated Facility Services Department. So in terms of KPIs, this will be the last year that we will report out as more of a corporate, a limited corporate scope. We will be reporting out on all of our buildings going forward. But I did want to highlight this for a very specific reason. This was not a matter of simply moving 81.5 FTEs from recreation to facilities. We took this as a wonderful opportunity to do full modernization of all of our standard operating procedures, look at ways that we can leverage technology more effectively. We looked at implementing a 5-district model that allows us to provide consistent service delivery to include our fire halls as an example and our libraries, which were not previously part of the main portfolio. And we feel that our goal was to set the stage for that new team to be a national leader in facility management within the municipal sector. And I believe that we are well on our way to doing that. In terms of some key performance indicators, I want to highlight a couple of areas. One was the percentage of response crew travel time. We have improved that slightly. So the factors that play into that are traffic congestion, if there's a lot of construction in an area, multiple calls that may come in and increase call volumes. And we have been advocating really strongly for simultaneous dispatch, as many of you know, and we're very hopeful that that will be coming in the next few months, because that will make a huge difference. So I did want to highlight that. Also, the number of active card holders. As you can see, we're moving back to pre-pandemic levels. We did have a number of seniors who were concerned about coming into our spaces from a health perspective. But I see Tara and the team are doing a wonderful job of outreaching to new residents. And the number of library items borrowed per capita is at 11.24, the highest, which is a little bit down from 2022. I did want to comment that in 2019, the 9.09 was impacted directly by the renovations at Glen Abbey Library, which took approximately 7 months, but were well worth the investment because it is by far one of our busiest libraries and our residents love the space. The annual number of residents to recreation facilities, we are now projecting 4.2 million. Our residents are coming back to all of our programs in droves. We had the highest percentage of people that were enrolled in our camps, and our program registrations are at an all-time high. So we're very, very proud of that. The number of community events supported by the town is down slightly in 2023. However, the big story for 2023 and 22, but particularly 2023, is that Oakvillians are ready to celebrate, and they're ready to celebrate in large numbers. So in 2023, our Canada Day celebration was the single largest ever attended. We had about 35,000 participants who came to enjoy the event. We have also, as all of you know, run movie nights as well. And originally we were projecting about 200 people coming out to our movie nights on average. And we experienced surges up to 700 on those nights, along with a number of other events that are far exceeding the original attendance rates that we were projecting. Going forward, as you know, we're going to be doing the special event strategy in 2024, and we will be looking at the definition of what a community event actually is. So you will see changes in the definition starting next year. So we will have changes in the numbers, but I wanted to highlight that. Also, the number of residents that are enrolled in Rec Connect, we haven't traditionally reported that out to council in the past. The all-time high was in 2019, 2,176. We are definitely much lower than that, but we are starting to inch up in 2023. So we are watching that from the perspective of economic impact and how it's affecting Oakville families. The other piece that I did want to highlight is the hectares of open space per person. The open space is defined by all parkland, so it's not like the 2.1 per thousand, which is active sports fields specifically. This includes NHS that is owned by the town. There are aspects of the NHS that are still in the hands of developers, but where it's within the town portfolio, it is included there. And then, as Commissioner Wu mentioned, we added 3 kilometers of recreational trails, which are always incredibly popular with our residents. Facilities that meet accessibility requirements for built form. So in 2019 and 20, we did an audit of 53 buildings. We actually have 128 structures in total. However, we were only required to audit the buildings that were built before 2006 when the regulation came in. Any buildings that have been built post-2006 are all fully compliant. So, you know, obviously 16 Mile Sports Complex, OTCC, the renovation to Trafalgar Park Community Center, as an example, are all fully compliant. So we are 53% completed. We have 16 accessibility improvement projects in our capital program, so we will be fully compliant for January 1st, 2025. The other thing I wanted to mention is that for the operations side of it and the cost per foot, this right now only represents 6 corporate buildings because it's reflective of what the original scope was for the old FCM department. So it included the town hall, the transit facility, the 3 public works yards, and the Church Street parking garage. Going forward, it will represent 53 active buildings because now we have them all consolidated into one portfolio. So under the tax levy by program, all of our programs are experiencing the same challenges with respect to increase in salary and benefits, contract services, vehicle cost increases, those kinds of things. So I just want to focus on issues that are specific to each department. So under facility services, 81.5 FTEs were transferred from the recreation and culture team over to facility services. So that cost is included here. In addition to that, we have one request for a security supervisor to oversee the implementation of the security plan. And we also increased the repair budget for town hall. Under recreation and culture, it was adjusted obviously so that the facility function moves out, but there is an internal charge that goes back to facility services to pay for that service. Under parks and open space, the primary driver, aside from the normal factors, is operating impact arising from capital investment. So that includes the addition of staff to manage the 2 new sports fields at 16 Mile, along with the cricket pitch. In addition to that, the Cornwall Road skateboard park, and also the all-season court at George Savage Park as well. The Oakville Public Library, we expanded the collection budget. It has been traditionally under funded, and so we are now right-sizing it. Harbors, no change. Emergency services, specifically, we transferred an extra $1 million to the fire equipment reserve to top that up as well, because we're finding that fire equipment in general is experiencing the same inflationary issues as other areas. And cemeteries has 2 sort of factors that play off each other. On the expense side, we've experienced an increase in preservation and care costs for our pioneer cemeteries. And on the revenue side, earlier this year, we installed a columbarium. And as a result of those sales, we have enjoyed some very good revenue offsets. Our watch list, I did want to spend a little bit of time on this. You will notice that it's a little bit different than the other commissions because it's more reflective of our connection to the community. The first thing is increased diversity in the community, which we think is really exciting, and changing public interests and expectations. The issue of multi-language capability is starting to rear its head a little more frequently. Fire prevention has been looking at options with respect to that, and they've certainly in the past posted videos in different languages to encourage a greater sense of inclusion and belonging with our residents. Changing indoor-outdoor recreational trends post-pandemic. As many of you will be aware, as part of the Parks Rec Library Master Plan, we did a whole section with our residents and asked them point blank how the pandemic had impacted the way that they recreate and what did they see not continuing post-pandemic and what trends look to be more long-term. So in a nutshell, I can say Oakville residents rediscovered their love affair with the outdoors during the pandemic. That love affair appears to be long-term, and in fact, the love is growing. So they have indicated as part of their responses on surveys that not only are they going to continue to recreate outside, they want to do more of it. So that has implications for us in terms of the type of programming that we offer and the type of sports that we support along with cultural activities. Community mental health challenges continue to be a concern. We are still seeing that a number of our seniors, as an example, are still experiencing a lot of isolation and loneliness, so we have continued some of our connection programs to ensure that people are calling them and making sure that they're okay on a regular basis, which has been very much appreciated by them, and we will continue that for the foreseeable future. An issue that unfortunately has become a national topic, but unfortunately Oakville is not immune, is the rising issue of intolerance and lack of respect for each other's opinions, challenges to intellectual freedom, particularly as it relates to the collection in the library. I'm sure you've seen in the media some of the challenges that libraries are facing across Canada. And we are also experiencing increases in hate incidents. So for example, in the last 3 weeks, we had swastikas carved into the bathrooms of Oakville Central Library and Woodside. I'm pleased to report there's been an arrest, but those incidents are happening more frequently, and staff are quite concerned about the type of issues that we're having to face. Our commission is also facing an increase in issues related to working with the homeless, whether it's fire responding to a call. Our parks operations are dealing with encampments along with our colleagues in municipal enforcement. We have individuals who are sheltering in our doorways of our facilities. And we also have individuals that are using both the library spaces and the recreation centers as safe, quiet spaces during the day. So what this means for our team is we have had to really build our knowledge and understanding of what the broader social service network provides across Halton Region. We've had to really reach out in terms of establishing much stronger partnerships, and our staff have had to be much more aware of the evolving landscape with respect to all of those services. So that's a new challenge for us. Obviously, our team is rising to the occasion, as they always do, but it is one that is of concern to us. Like my colleagues in other commissions, we are also experiencing recruitment challenges for specific positions. Obviously, in-person ones are always a little bit more of a challenge. So the first one is arborists are ongoing. There is a great love affair across Canada with trees, and so the demand for arborist services is really significant and has really not abated since the 2013 ice storm. In addition to that, we are also finding certified facility operators to be an ongoing challenge. That started a little bit before the pandemic, and now it's more of an acute issue. And as many of you know, because I know I've spoken to several of you about this, finding certified aquatic staff has been a challenge. We've been working really closely with our colleagues in human resources, but we have also reached out in partnership to other recreation departments in other municipalities to share ideas and creative solutions on how we can move forward, and we've partnered with them in terms of participation around job fairs, just to try and get recruitment. We are pleased that 15-year-olds are now going to be part of the mix. That will help a little bit. But we're also looking at different creative solutions to attract new staff. Because as we know, aquatics were incredibly popular during the pandemic, and you can never have too many aquatic aquafit sessions in any of our pools. The last thing I did want to mention is that we are also following very closely emerging trends in e-specialty vehicles like pumper trucks and GPS-related equipment in parks operations. So we're looking at municipalities that have ordered the first of, pumper trucks to see what the performance is like, what are the challenges, so that we can learn from them and mitigate when we get to the point of purchase. The other piece is we are piloting things like lining sports fields with GPS-driven equipment as well, and to see what sort of time efficiencies that we might have going forward. So we're excited about that particular one. It's a good trend. So in terms of our 2024 key commission initiatives, we are obviously going to start the detailed design for the extensive retrofit for Fire Station 4, which I know is of particular interest to certain members of council. We are also opening 16 Mile Phase 1 outdoor amenities in the spring. We continue construction on our indoor facilities and Phase 2 outdoor amenities. We are posting regular videos on the website so that our residents can follow the progress around the construction, and those videos are immensely popular. We will also be starting the construction of permanent Fire Station 9. We will be doing 4 downtown cultural hub projects, which we're extremely excited about. The first one is the public consultation on the new central library programming. So it'll be very similar public consultation model to what we did with 16 Mile, where we asked the public what type of service experiences do they want to have? How do they want to engage with the space? What sort of experiences do they want with their family, with their friends, or by themselves? So we're really looking forward to that particular piece. We are also, in conjunction with that, looking at the Central Library feasibility, and we will be starting detailed design next year as well. For those of you who are around prior to the pandemic, we will also be doing a refresh of the theater feasibility study. Where we landed prior with the Downtown Cultural Hub is we had done the feasibility study, but we never presented fully what the options were to council. So this is an opportunity for us to refresh in light of the changes that have happened in the theater sector, and also present options that would be for council's consideration. In addition to that, from a due diligence standpoint, we're also doing site condition study of Centennial Square, the Centennial site in its entirety. There have been targeted studies done in the past, but we are well aware, I know Councillor Chisholm has mentioned this several times, that there are multiple uses that have taken place on that site over the years. And I know that in 2010, we did find artifacts in a particular part of the site. So we think that it would be highly appropriate to ensure that the whole site has been reviewed. And from a parks feasibility standpoint, if you remember from the DCH public consultation from years back, the thing that everyone was most interested in and most excited about was the possibility of the creation of a riverside park. So what we want to do with respect to the site condition study is determine what opportunities we have and what constraints we have with respect to the site and the park's design. In addition to that, we will be presenting the Parks Recreation Library Master Plan and the Fire Master Plan by the end of Q1 of 2024. The draft reports will be completed by the end of this year, and then we will take an opportunity in the next few weeks at the start of the year to review those recommendations and refine. We also will be starting the Wallace Park Revitalization Project as well. It was delayed by a year, but now we're ready to go, and we're very excited about that, to be working with the residents there. We also will be starting the iTree canopy analysis, the forestry permit review, which I know is of interest to many, and we'll be working closely with our colleagues in development engineering. And we will be constructing the new seawalls at Shipyard Park and Berta Point. Berta Point is a state of good repair project. We are addressing all of the outstanding issues that were caused by the flooding in 2017 and 19. The Shipyard Park piece is quite exciting because it's phase 1, and then phase 2 will be the development of the park area that is known as Shipyard Park. So that will be fantastic. We are also implementing phase 1 of the security plan. So that has 3 components to it. The first is that we will continue to review all our policies, procedures, training, to make sure that all of our staff are fully trained, not just specific areas, and to make sure that we are doing regular drills so that staff are really well prepared in the unlikely possibility that we may have an incident. The second is that we have to do a life cycle replacement for the hurricane card reader system. The original funding was approved in 2023, so we're going to be working on that. And then the third one is that we're putting in place a security camera strategy so that not only are we replacing the cameras as they should, however, we want to also look at strategic placement to make sure that we have maximum coverage. We're looking at the functionality of those cameras so that we're leveraging those cameras to maximum effect, both in terms of monitoring what's going on, but also in the event of any investigation that takes place. Our 2023 efficiencies, as many of you know, we've reported out on financial efficiencies every year for the last 5 years. This year, we're reporting out on something a little bit different. So our commission has really focused heavily from a customer service standpoint on the development of online services. So for example, the most recent one that we introduced was a new self-serve for last-minute gymnasium booking. And we already have an 89% uptake on it. We also enjoy one of the highest uptakes in the GTHA for online registrations, which sits at 92%. We introduced last minute or online booking for picnics, which is coming in at a 90% uptake. Last minute ice rentals, which is 82%. And shooter pads that are 80% uptake. And that just sort of gives you a little bit of the flavor of how our customers are shifting. Where this becomes important is twofold. One means that our residents can book online 24/7, which before they were not able to do. So it's reflective of their busy lifestyles and how they want to engage with the town. But more importantly, what it means is that we have not added a request for a full-time customer service rep in the recreation support services area, which covers all of the bookings for both recreation and parks and open space since 2014. So that's an accomplishment we're extremely proud of. For 2024 resource requirements, we've tried to be as frugal as possible, recognizing there's pressures in other parts of the corporation. So we've asked for one security coordinator who will lead the phased-in implementation of the security master plan. We have also asked for conversion of 3 seasonal parks operations positions to full-time as well. We actually have about 20 in total, but we have not asked for all of them to be converted to full-time because we want to see whether or not this actually does start to address some of our ongoing recruitment challenges or if we have to look at different strategies. So we've asked for that, and then we have 2.7 parks growth positions for the additions that I mentioned earlier. For the capital program, we are requesting $102 million. The lion's share of it is sitting in parks and open space at 52%, emergency services at 22%, facility services at 11%, and recreation at 8%. So the highlights here, from the standpoint of inclusion and diversity, we have 16 accessibility improvement projects that are embedded throughout all of these different areas. And we have 8 energy projects as well. So the highlights that I have not mentioned was the $4.1 million to replace the blue rink at Glen Abbey Community Center, $5 million under community belonging for the land purchase of a future Trafalgar Corridor North Library branch, which I think will be very well received by the residents there. Under environmental sustainability, we have $21.5 million for park acquisition for future park development in place, and $13.7 million to develop new neighborhood parks, parkettes, and trails. We also are investing $4.8 million to support the health of the existing tree canopy, which is very important, and the natural environment by combating EAB. As everyone knows, we have ongoing challenges with invasive species that keep cropping up. There seems to be a new one every single year. That we're doing ongoing audits with respect to that we have, and we're also doing ensuring the good health of our woodlands, and we are continuing to do tree planting, obviously. And then the $1.6 million to replace the card access security system. So we received 19 requests as a result of the ward consultations. I'm not going to go through every one of them. I will highlight that the Parks Recreation Library Master Plan will deal with requests like community gardens, which we know have become increasingly more popular, and off-leash dog parks. During the COVID, a number of people acquired new pets, and so now there is much greater pressure to find places where they can take their family pets as well. So I've identified where it's going to be addressed through the master plan. The other piece I did want to flag is there was some question around timing of replacement of parks amenities. That's all tied to our asset management program. Each year we do a condition assessment of all of our parks equipment and determine what the level of deterioration is and whether or not replacement stays as originally scheduled, can be moved back or gets moved up. So I just wanted to highlight that. I did want to mention, for the sake of Councillor O'Meara and Councillor McNeese, that the Bronte Beach improvement does include accessibility improvements in that particular project. I think I've covered that. So in terms of Ward 2, we have not currently made any changes to the BIA special events budgets. Each of our BIAs gets $10,000 to support special events. Kerr has asked for $20,000, but I would recommend that that gets considered within the whole BIA portfolio as opposed to just one. And with respect to the Christmas street lighting on Lakeshore West, BIAs normally fund the festive lighting and decor. We would be delighted to work with them if they would like to proceed on that. For Ward 3, the additional resources for forestry, for woodlot and street trees, we are going to be undertaking a detailed review and trend analysis of existing work orders and the backlog, and we are also looking at process reengineering. We're also looking at the review of the tree permit process as well, so we'll be looking at opportunities there. And with respect to a reserve fund to procure a public space in Midtown, that will be dealt with through the Midtown Implementation Plan. For our Ward 5 councillors who are very excited about the work that our Parks Planning team did with respect to Campus of Parks study, we are starting the public consultation and detailed design for Ridgeview Park, splash pad and shelter. We're going to actually be starting that work shortly. And then our plan is to construct that in 2025, and then the additional parks will be sequenced in terms of planning in 26 and beyond. For Ward 6, we are looking to establish the Riverstone Park. So we are going to be initiating the public consultation shortly with a plan for construction in 2024. With respect to the acquisition of the Parkway lands, the town continues to dialogue with Infrastructure Ontario. It is our understanding that behind the scenes, Infrastructure Ontario is working through their due diligence exercises with respect to Indigenous consultation and also site condition assessment. For Ward 7, I think we've covered most of it. Phase 2 will be done at the end of 2024, and the community center, and it will be done in 2025 along with the library. And then we will be looking at construction of the tennis courts, pickleball courts, the basketball court, and the beach volleyball courts beyond. And so with that, I turn the microphone back over to Chair O'Meara.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Councillor Chisholm, I believe, was first.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the comprehensive presentation. Very exciting information moving forward with recreation. You know, that's where my heart is. With respect to Glen Abbey Arena, the 4.1 million for the capital, could you just give a little bit more detail on that, Colleen, with respect to what that 4.1 million is going to incur on that ice pad?
I believe it's the refrigeration system is failing. It was originally not supposed to be done this year. It had been scheduled for later in the capital program, but we had unexpected failures and repairs that needed to be done, and we realized we had to move it forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Nanda?
Thank you, through you, Chair O'Meara. Thank you for the presentation. As you know, we are very excited about 16 Mile and all the projects that are going on there. I did just have a few questions. One was for Fire Station 9. Can you give me a timeline on when that's expected to be built and operational?
I think we're starting construction later this year, and I think it would be done by the end of 25.
25, early 26 at the latest.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. I had a question on universal bathrooms. And I know we've had a few questions and concerns about having only universal bathrooms at 16 Mile. Can you confirm if there's going to be just universal change rooms and bathrooms, or is it going to be a mix of?
No, it's going to be a mix.
It will be a mix?
Yes.
Okay, so we can tell residents it won't just be universal all the way across. Okay, perfect. I wanted to say thank you to Chris, Mark, and his team for the benches that they provided for summer requests for seniors. You were saying how seniors, feel a little bit lonely, isolated. So these small things do make a big difference. And so we've received thanks from the community for those benches. And so we do appreciate that. And then just lastly on the homelessness, I think we've all seen that around. Recently when I went on a ride along with Halton Police, we did have a couple of those instances. And I found that they also had difficulty of what to do and where to place them. And one of their concerns was as well that there's only one shelter in Oakville where they can request or ask, the residents if they'd like to go, if they want to go or they don't. And so their only option is to sort of leave them in place where they are as long as they're not making noise or they're not being disruptive. But I know also on the regional side, our commissioner there as well with housing, they're trying to work on something. So I think it might be a good synergy if some of the stakeholders can get together, because I was also asked, how can we help out? I also thought if the region can do something in the town and now Halton Police, Fire, if everyone can get together, because we are seeing it more. I'm seeing it in the plazas. I'm seeing it where the carts are in Superstore or Walmart. And, of course, with winter coming up, another safety issue. We don't want that to happen. So just wanted to, remark on that a little bit, but thank you.
So one thing I did want to highlight is that our community development team is heavily embedded into those networks that deal with the homeless. When we're dealing with homeless issues, there's usually a myriad of issues that the individual might be facing. One of the biggest challenges that you have in trying to get someone into a shelter is what their feeling of safety is, and whether or not they've had a good or bad experience in the past. So a big issue is identification, and have they had their identification stolen, as an example, in a shelter. So there's all kinds of things that we need to consider, and the mental health issues definitely play in.
Thank you. Those were my questions.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McNeese is next.
Thank you. Through you, Chair O'Meara. Thanks to staff and Colleen for great detailed presentation. Just a few questions here. I'm really excited about the community activation grant, and as we're getting to implement it, I like these sort of small scale change that helps change behavior, culture, creates a good sense of community. A constituent reached out and pointed me towards a similar program in Markham called the Sustainable Neighborhood Small Grant. So a similar idea, but kind of focused on climate change type stuff at the neighborhood scale. And just an example, green energy and transportation projects at the neighborhood level. So if you want to coordinate a walk to school program, you get a little bit of funding to promote it, things like that. Zero waste challenges, create a pollinator garden. Could we take a quick look, like maybe just a mini staff report? What would that cost if we were to kind of do that in the future?
Absolutely, we can. Now, just for a point of clarification, are you looking at it from the standpoint of expanding the scope? Because the scope as it stands right now with respect to community activation is tied really more to the delivery of special events in general.
Yeah, I think it's different enough. I mean, I'll leave it to you as to, is it the same program, just two elements, or are they separate programs? But I think it's really good with that, just culture change and letting people take action in their neighborhood and understand. I think it helps understand the big complicated stuff that we're trying to deal with if they can see it in their neighborhood. So yeah, if you don't mind looking into that, and we'll see what it costs, that would be great. Along the lines of the activation of the Bronte Market Square, I didn't see, I saw sort of, connecting with the BIA and stuff, but I didn't see a funding ask. I think it's beyond what a BIA can bear to kind of get things started. I mean, right now it's sort of a slab of concrete that has a few fountains and very low utilization. I think significant investments have been made in downtown Oakville's public square, and this is kind of our own public square that had sort of high hopes, but it hasn't really been activated properly. And I know as well as you do, it oftentimes takes funding to get a process for the community to understand how they might use something that they're not accustomed to using, and what are those activities and times of day, and how do we use in the winter, and that's all challenging stuff. So I believe it's gonna take some funding or a consultant that's beyond what a BIA could bear. I think they've got some ideas and they've got a bit of a plan, but it's sort of significant to get it going. So I was hoping to see a funding ask for that, because I think that's what it's going to take to see activation next year, and that's a lot of the feedback we get, Councilor Mara and I, is why isn't the space being used? So I appreciate that as well. One other thing, so Canoka Arena, I didn't see anything in there, and that's the closest arena to our ward. So I'm wondering, in the future, it's probably in the 10-year capital, but as we're a growth area and more people are coming to our area, that's the closest rink for recreation. So I don't expect anything to be done next year, but putting on the radar that as we grow, are we planning to make improvements there, or where's, sort of the facilities for that? And I've heard that from residents as well. On Metro Marina, I only noticed about 50,000 in the capital budget to make improvements there, and it's I guess it's getting to a state of disrepair. And to me, it seems to me like it might need more than that to kind of help stabilize it. And it's a heritage structure, and we tell developers to take good care of their heritage structures, and it's certainly looking like it needs a coat of paint and some work done. So I'm just wondering if 50K is going to do it for next year, or does it need a bit more investment to help stabilize it?
So what we were hoping is that the land ownership issue with respect to Bronte Heritage Park would be resolved, so that then we could move decisively towards the overall harbor's operation plan, in which case an element of that would be building rationalization of all of the buildings that sort of fall within that portfolio, because it's 3 different marinas. And then at that point in time, we would define what the use was. So we're hopeful that that happens soon. If it looks like it's going to drag on, then we will revisit state of good repair and look at what we're going to do. But we were hoping to get 1 more year before we have to make a decision on it.
Okay, so, and I imagine you have contingencies if the roof starts acting up or something.
We do.
Okay. And then I heard some great things about Bronte Beach and Bertha Point, but I also saw some significant line items for Fisherman Wharf Park renewal, Bronte Heritage Park renewal, and South Shell Park renewal. Just curious what those entail, what types of renewals.
So I'm going to ask Director Mark to come up and provide a little more detail.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, through you, Chair O'Meara. South Shell Park is redoing of the parking lot. The bricks are starting to crumble. It's about 15 years old now, so it is being replaced. The boardwalk, as you mentioned, is going to be repaired and widened, so it's a continuous width all the way throughout the boardwalk. Right now it narrows around, I think around Marine Drive. So that's going to be widened. The Bronte Heritage Waterfront Park, we have plans for the parking lot renewal.
Okay, so that's those projects. Okay,
yeah.
Wasn't sure, thank you.
Perfect, thank you very much. Councillor Listrina.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was ready to wait till the end. Commissioner Bell, thank you so much for providing the tabs, because that's what I was looking for. Just reading through the book, a couple of points of clarification. Page 162, for external revenues for libraries, it says primarily like fines are on there. Do we still, I thought fines were removed, or is there fines for something else? Or has it been brought back?
No, we've eliminated a number of fines. I'm just going to ask Tara to provide a little more detail on that.
Through your chair, O'Meara. We've eliminated overdue fines. However, fines do still exist where they surpass the due date and they don't return the book. So we do charge back the cost of us having to replace that book. We also still have fees related to our fast path books, where you can come in and you have a 1 week kind of a loan in order to deliver really popular materials. So if you don't pick those up within a certain time frame, those still, as well as our hold expiry fee. So if you place a book on hold and it arrives and you do not pick it up, we still have a fee that relates to that as well.
Got it, thank you.
Thanks.
Very helpful. Okay, so next, I know I asked Chris this question last year about the toll wharf vessel, page 169. So I realize there's a $16,000 that was put into that fund again. Where are we at with that? So it wasn't going to be purchased this or in next year. And I can't remember what Chris said last year, but what is that fund at? And is there going to be, or are we going to be able to buy a vessel in the next 10 years with that?
So through you, Councillor O'Meara, the tow wharf vessel is currently under construction. In fact, I'm heading out in early November to see it at one of the milestones for construction. We will be coming back to council with a further report on the funding of the vessel, and that will also include the harbors as well. So right now, the Harbors Reserve Fund, the tow wharf reserve fund is being used almost exclusively for the boat, and then they will start contributing back into the reserve beginning in 2024.
Okay, thank you, Chris. That's good news. Next is page 188. There's a KPI on greenhouse gas emissions. This is for facility services. And I read earlier, and I'm not sure which tab that was, but it was in building services about an energy coach. So is this someone that would be used, because we're looking at obviously efficiencies and using energy in a way better way, and so this obviously has a greenhouse effect to it. So how is that energy coach, or first of all, I'm not really sure exactly what they're doing, but are those two areas being used by this energy coach? I'm not sure if I'm even asking the right question here, but it's regarding the energy coach.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to provide some more detail on the energy advisor / coach. It's really for building services as a way of helping building permit applicants address some of the retrofits that they can achieve or how to navigate through the grant process. And so it's really about people, the public, coming to building with their projects, and they can, the energy advisor will give them some guidance and tips and assistance along the way.
Okay, so it's got nothing to do with the...
And if I could just add, so all of our construction projects have sustainability consultants that are added as part of the project team, because we need very specialized skills to determine the best way to ensure that we are continually reducing our energy consumption, meeting our net zero carbon target. So we look very specifically as part of the project team for each one of those projects to ensure that the environmental piece is firmly embedded.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And I guess to end off on not a great note, but about cemeteries. Currently, so our cemetery plot capacity, where are we at?
I'm going to ask the director to speak to that.
Through you, Chair O'Meara, the current Trafalgar Lawn Cemetery has no full burials left. We are completely sold out of full burials. However, as Commissioner Bell indicated in her presentation, we have added another columbarium, and we'll add another one in the future for cremated remains burials, but we are completely out of space for full burials.
Okay, so can you just explain what was added?
We added a columbarium, which is a structure with about 40 to 50 niches, as they're called, with a small door that you can put cremated remains inside as a burial option.
Okay, so currently the town is out of any further plots, and is there any future look to see if that's going to be expanded at all?
So yes, through your Chair, O'Meara, we have looked at the potential of expanding the cemetery to the north. We have about 6 acres north of the currently developed Trafalgar Lawn Cemetery, and it's fairly expensive in order to do that. And we've looked at it in the past. However, the legislation has changed most recently that we could actually borrow against our own care and maintenance fund to make these expansions. So we want to have a look at the business plan again. We did a business plan a couple of years ago, but being able to fund it through our own internal reserves we have for care and maintenance certainly helps out a lot.
Okay, so are we having people asking still, or?
We get calls every day for full burials.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Adams.
Thanks very much. I've got 2 questions. The first is one, I just wanted to ask if our staff could speak with Councillor Lischin and I about there's 2 projects in the capital listings in the 10-year listing about the Parkway, one for the Parkway North, one for the South. I wonder if we can just have a conversation about what's intended there. The second is, I was approached about funding for small grants for environmental initiatives and those types of grants. And I wonder if staff could give us a listing at a future date of funding available either through the town or through the region or through other sources that would capture any type of request that might fall under that umbrella. And it came out of a discussion around the Earth Day cleanup program that's run where there's lots and lots of volunteers, and theoretically if we ever had to replace all the volunteers with paid staff, it would cost us a bunch of money, and we'd have to hire, I don't know, a bunch of summer students to replace all those volunteers or something. And shouldn't they get credit for in some way for all this volunteer work by way of the town putting that money that's saved into some other place? And so I think there's a bunch of opportunities out there, and I just don't have a single place to go and look at.
So would you like us to include that information as part of the report back that Councillor McNeice has
I don't
identified?
want that
I think
today.
they would actually fit quite beautifully together.
Yeah, this is, could somebody go and figure this all out and come back with it at a later date? Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Haslett-Theo.
Thank you, through you, Chair O'Meara. Thank you, as always, for a great presentation. It's great to see how much we grow and we care. So I'm going to try and consolidate my questions. On emergency services, the investment in the new equipment, et cetera, how much of that is covered by DCs?
It would depend. So can we respond back to you with the exact calculations, Councillor?
Sure. It just struck me as I think we should understand, because we're making these investments as a result of growth, the adage of how much is growth paid for. So if that could come back to us, that would be great. You mentioned a special equipment reserve being set up. Would that special reserve be accessible if the design of the firefighters' uniforms change. There's some material issues in that have been identified in all fires, not just Oakville, in how they are. I don't know what the material that is used in it, and there may be at some point a need to replace those uniforms. Would that come out of equipment reserve fund? And the chief is right behind you.
He's very excited to respond.
Through you, Chair O'Meara, and I didn't want to stand behind the commissioner ominously as such, but very good question. Just to the previous question, just so that you're aware, and certainly we can get back on the exact total, but there's only one unit that's included based upon growth, and that's an aerial in the north. And that's funded by DC. So that's the one question. So what you're seeing is there's a significant amount of information about, it's called PFAS, and it's essentially linked to cancer amongst firefighters. And the story originated initially with a Boston firefighter predating both moisture barrier and thermal barriers of the bunker gear pre-2014. Why that's significant is in 2014, 2015 is when the town of Oakville, on a very progressive fashion, started getting 2 sets of bunker gear for every firefighter. The value of that is that when a firefighter becomes contaminated, be it through a structure fire and contaminants associated with burning materials, or bodily fluids, or anything of that nature which requires the gear to be out of service and cleaned, they have another set of gear that's fit for them. Health and safety is taken care of, plus operational efficiencies can still be maintained. The design of our current bunker gear has the most current standards that are out there in the highest, I won't say the highest, but certainly one of the best protectors against PFAS associated with the information that's out there. It is to your question, we have a separate account that's dedicated to bunker gear. We're keeping a close eye on the industry to see if technology changes and that a PFAS-free garment and or material is created. And as such, we will certainly alter at that point in any purchasing of our new gear to ensure our firefighter safety. Firefighter safety is our utmost important. One of the values that I've been afforded the opportunity as elected by my peers, I sit on the board of the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs as secretary, which also directly relates as the Canadian Division liaison for the International Association of Fire Chiefs. And I also was elected to the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs Board of Directors. Where the value sits in that is I remain very current on any of the current legislation, including Bill C-224, Sherry Romanato's bill for cancer and fire service. So what I can assure you and our fire service is that as soon as something is available, we will certainly alter to ensure the safety and protection of our crews.
So thank you, Chief. And I have every confidence you would. I just want to make sure we had set the money aside if we needed to. So it sounds like we're...
On a phased-in approach as necessary, we're ready to certainly move into that direction.
Okay, and so don't go away because I do have a follow-up. The aerial, how high does that aerial truck service? How many stories?
Well, traditionally, aerials range anywhere between the 80 to 110 feet. The only aerial that extends beyond that at this point in Ontario is the 73-meter aerial that currently exists in Toronto. The aerials, again, are mostly created for both rescue up to 8 to 10 stories, but it's more so the master stream capacity to be able to provide large amounts of water in defensive operations, or in some cases offensive, to try and mitigate the situation from getting worse. There are very few aerials beyond 110 feet in height that are used for rescue operations. And I would just use the analogy that bigger isn't necessarily always better. Where we're working hard is not only with building services, but in the code and legislative requirements to ensure that buildings have safety requirements built into them so that when we look to a high-rise unit, we have the equipment and capabilities to deal with fires from the inside because you're not able to go 50 or 60 stories in height to get it from the outside.
Thank you for that additional detail. It was quite helpful. Okay, my other questions are, OTCC has a $744,000 repair or cost in the capital plan or something. Could somebody just come back to us about what that is? Because we love the building, we love the community center, but I was kind of surprised to see that number. So if you could come back, that would be great. I am concerned about the timing of the master plan coming back to us, the Parks and Rec, because the Midtown decisions are imminent, December, January, and you raised a very important point, which is you have gotten 11,000 pieces of feedback about parks, recreation, and one of those consolidated sort of summary statements seems to be that people are loving the outdoors, and it's a critical piece to their enjoyment of living in Oakville. And it's obviously relevant to Midtown. So is it possible to get, and it's a takeaway, can you kind of gather some of that information? So again, we're trying to make a database decision, a fact-based decision. It would just be helpful to us. I know it's not a budget dollar amount, but as you raised it, it's important that we have that information sooner rather than later.
We can certainly share trend information with you, particularly from the survey component, which I think would be very helpful for you.
Thank you. You talked about the special permits and about, special events and permitting around that. I just, will we see something by the 2025 budget that would perhaps identify our ability to provide some cultural events at a broader level? So I love the community activation grant. I think that you got us to the right place in terms of local neighborhood coming together. I love what Councillor McNeese and Councillor Adams are talking about in terms of sustainability. But there are, as you said, people wanting to come together on these cultural events. And it is not something the BIAs can be held to do. They would love to do more in connection with the town around celebrating culture. Will you be coming back in 2025 with the results and how much investment we'd need to do broader cultural celebrations?
Yes, we will. So one of the things we will be looking at is we have the benefit of neighboring municipalities who actually have a greater degree of diversity and maturity with respect to the delivery of those types of events. So we will be looking at best practices from around the GTHA and other major cities who have gone through this process and see what we may be able to recommend to council that will work well. We do have challenges internally with respect to resources, so we will have to take that into account, but certainly we will be looking at what the split is between what the town delivers directly, what the town delivers perhaps in partnership with other community groups, and what is a direct support. So yes, definitely.
Thank you for that. I'm just going to shift to the Central Library. So as you know, I think as Tara knows, and those that visit the Central Library, it is well loved. And we are making a change, and change comes with some concerns. Will there be stakeholder specific to, how will you identify those stakeholders within the Central Library to engage them in that public consultation? Because some will not necessarily go online for a survey, some have accessibility challenges. Will you actively be in the library soliciting input on design and what's important to them? I just know how well loved it is, and we need to get it right.
So there's two parts to that consultation, because it will be a little bit unique for the Central Library. Unlike 16 Mile Sports Complex, where essentially they're brand new amenities, the Central Library has been in place since the mid-60s. And we do actually have patrons who have been at that library since the mid-60s. So in light of that, the consultation would be twofold. One would be what type of experiences, what type of programs, what type of amenities are they looking forward to having in the new facility? And then the other piece of it is working through the transition, because they will be going from one location that is beloved to a new location. And how would they like us to communicate with them around the changes, what the progress is, opportunities for safe tours at certain points, how we can provide regular sessions to those patrons as well on what's happening, how we've incorporated their ideas and feedback into the design. So we're very sensitive to the fact that it's a big, huge change for those patrons, and that we will be very sensitive in how we manage their expectations.
And I'm assuming all of that's covered in the budget that you've given us?
Yes.
Perfect. My last question is just around, I'm shifting a bit, but the vehicles that parks use. You mentioned the specialized equipment. Could somebody report back how many of our vehicles or our equipment are electric charged or electric vehicles? And is there a path forward over the next 10 years to get us further along that electric vehicle or electric charging process? I don't expect it today. It's just, it seems it's a climate change request as well, but it's also a financial, that these things are obviously costly.
Through Mr. Chair, Director Clark mentioned that we will be doing an EV plan and a policy and guideline this year. So in 2024, we will be taking a look at our inventory, where we're heading, where are the internal town vehicles, EV path, chargers, and as well as we're going to look at outside of the town, where's the role of the town, where are we going to be in terms of EV as well. So that entire policy and guideline review will be done in 2024, and it will encompassing all town fleet as well as where our role is outside of town, and it will include Commissioner Bell's vehicles through our fleet review.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Councillor Knoll.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and through you to our very own Commissioner of Fun Stuff. A couple questions. First of all, and I apologize in advance if it's in the book, because as been stated earlier, we haven't all had a lot of chance to read through all the materials. And second apology is that I've been in and out of this meeting because I'm dealing with that very issue you spoke about earlier, about that insensitivity thing that we're dealing with at the library. I've been responding to emails. I'm up to 214 so far since yesterday afternoon. So anyway, my questions. Station 4, you mentioned it's in there's some money allocated in the capital program for 2024 for, I think, expansion. What is the current, where are we right now with Station 4 in terms of its future outlook? I see your security's behind you ready to pounce.
I'm going to turn this over to my fire security.
Okay.
Through Councillor O'Meara. Yes, Councillor, it's listed as an expansion, but by all accounts, it's essentially it's a new station. So its funds are for architecture and development next year, and then build out for 2025, 2026, with a probable opening in 2027.
Can we change that in the actual capital plan so that it's clear that it's not an expansion? Because we spent a whack a dough there recently to upgrade the facility, new roof, and I think there's some electrical work done and some various things, and it sort of it gets drawn to my attention periodically from members of the community and from the service. Why are we spending so much money on a building that was built temporarily back in, what was it, 74? It'd be good. It'd be nice to see that properly identified as the replacement or some other nomenclature that makes it clear that we're moving forward towards replacement and not throwing more good money after bad.
Thank you very much. Yes, through Chair O'Meara, we can certainly do that. Product code was created, or pardon me, the object code was created. It remained the same, but the project can certainly be as you've identified.
Thanks. That'd be great, just for absolute clarity. And so, what is the ultimate timeline for that project? So, if the money's going into the prep work in 24, when do we expect to actually see a new building on that property?
Yeah, through Chair O'Meara, we're hopeful that we're going to be into the building in early 2027 at the latest.
Okay. Okay, that's the same timeline as before. That's great. Thank you so much, Chief. I appreciate it. Further question. This one's back to Commissioner Fun. I don't see any money allocated for the Eco Park anywhere. Did I just miss that, or are we putting any money aside for capital works or operational expenditures? Where do we stand with that project? I know we own it, so clearly we're expending money on maintaining it. Are we putting any money aside to actually turn it into an operational, usable facility?
So at this point in time, what we have been doing is meeting as an interdepartmental team to look at what the possibilities are with respect to that park. So we've had several visioning sessions around the use of the buildings that are currently in existence there, and then what would we look at in terms of trail connections, those kinds of things. So it's a little premature at this point to have anything in the capital program.
Shouldn't there be something in there, though, some placeholder? Because, I mean, it basically, if you're just meeting at this point, there's nothing in 24, then that means nothing's going to happen until 25? Or would you simply use reserves if you came up with projects in 24? I'm just concerned. We've owned it for a while now, and we've made no progress towards actually making it available to the public. So where do we stand on that? I mean, even if it is another year away, it'd be nice to see if there's some progress being made towards that.
So we actually had money in last year, and we haven't spent it as of yet.
Okay, well, that's good.
So we're on the move.
So but there's a plan afoot to have some progress there in the coming year.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. I'm going to get back to my emails now.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McNeice.
I think I might be second round. Does Councillor Grant want to go first, or I can go quickly though.
No, you know what? I apologize. You're right. I'm just following my order here. Councillor Grant, I believe you haven't gone yet, so fire away.
Well, thank you. And I guess I'll dovetail on Councillor Knoll's points, seeing how the Pandora's box that's Fire Station 4 has been opened up. I'm just interested in what the living conditions will be like for the people in the station itself, for the firefighters, as these renovations go on. Is there any, I guess for want of a better term, succession plan to make sure that they've got proper living quarters through the whole renovation?
Yes, through Chair O'Meara. What I can assure you is that we are not going to be looking into similar situations that presented themselves during the renovations at Station 4. We certainly took a very detailed approach with both my commissioner, and I will not allude to her as Commissioner Fun, but Commissioner Bell, as well as the association in dealing with what started out and what ended up were two very different situations. So we ended up at a good place, learned a lot from that experience, and in looking forward to a project of this nature, want to ensure that we maintain the coverage associated with the location and the emergency services requirements for response, but being mindful of the timelines associated with a construction project of this nature. And we're looking into a multitude of different facets to ensure that it's as seamless as possible.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Okay, we've got Councillor Shi and then Councillor McNeice.
Thank you, Chair Maria. I'm going to continue to this discussion about those communities sponsor program for the culture, for the climate change, and for other issues things. So I know for those rental of our facility, we have some special rate for different group, right?
Right.
So I'm thinking about if we can consider further about like a special group like seniors or youth who use those facilities very frequently, like every week they use. So is that possible to consider about the big discounts about special rate, additional something that can put this is also kinds of sponsor from the town. So can that is consideration to put the report, like my colleague, Councilor McNeese and Tomatis asked for that report to think about this together?
We can certainly look at whether or not we need to review our rates and fees, because any sort of rental is tied to rates and fees. But we can also look at different ways of funding specific groups and make recommendations to council for their consideration.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. And Councillor McNeese.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Mayor. Just a quick comment on connecting the dots between some of the conversations on sustainability. And I just had an idea for some of the parking lots we're resurfacing or building, specifically in Ward 1 in some of the parks. I know that the town has done permeable paving at I believe a town facility as sort of a trial project, but I think it would be great to showcase something like that more publicly. Is it possible in one of these parking lot renewals, either at South Shell Park or Bronte Heritage Park, to try out these permeable pavers in a more sort of public setting? I don't expect you to know the answer right now, but if we could,
We'll
imagine there's
report back.
Okay, I appreciate that. Unless Chris might already know, I don't know.
Okay,
but,
Director Mark would like to speak to it right now.
okay, thanks.
Through you, Chair O'Meara, South Shell Park was actually done initially with permeable pavers, and we're going to be replacing them with permeable pavers. So it'll be a retrofit of the existing surface.
So I guess my suggestion would be, it'd be great to have a sign to tell people about that, because that's, I think that's great in connecting the dots between sustainability. We talk about stormwater with our infrastructure, and the fact that we're, as we renew parks and public spaces, we're practicing what we preach. So yeah, but suggestion to promote it as you do it there. And if there's an opportunity in other parks, if that's working well, then I think that would be great, great addition. So
thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Knoll, I guess you didn't have that many emails to get to then. You're back again.
I'm actually paying rapt attention to the meeting. Anyway. I just want to add a helpful tidbit to the question that Councillor Haslefield asked with respect to the sensitivity around the central branch of the library. So I just want her to know that in addition to what Colleen has indicated, the staff are very attentive to that, but so is the board. The board's identified the sensitivity of change and the importance of that particular, even the building itself, to Oakville. And so we're very much as a board alive to that as well, and we will continue to be as we go forward in this process. So it's certainly it's an all-encompassing concern, both at the staff and board level. I just wanted to add that just for your comfort.
Thank you very much for that. I might just get one in myself, Commissioner, if that's okay. Before we have pickleballers taking paint and using our roads as a court, can you tell me when we're going to be at a point where we can start looking about where we put pickleball courts up? Again, every year I get the Sovereign parquet with the tennis courts there, and my answer to residents is always the same. We've got to finish our Rex Park event, but I think we're started doing that in 2017 or sometime. So I'm just wondering when we're going to be able to start delivering what our plan for pickleball courts is around the town.
That will come out as part of the master plan, and then we'll be looking at sort of actual scheduling of when it goes into the capital program. So we'll be able to provide much more detail next year.
Okay, so in 2024, we'll be reporting back on what that's going to look like and where they're going to go, and at least give some of them some okay. Because nothing scares me like a bunch of pickleballers who are upset.
They're very enthusiastic.
They're very enthusiastic, so thank you for that. Any other questions, committee members? Seeing none, thank you very much, Commissioner, for that presentation.
Thank you.
Members of the committee, I'm wondering if any of you would do me the favor of moving items 5.1 and 5.2. Councillor Shi, any objections? Seeing none, those carry. We have no confidential discussion items to discuss. And just a reminder for those watching or those in the audience here, again, the public delegation part will be October 31st at 9:30 in the morning and November 1st at 6:30 in the evening. Again, we'd love to hear from you. Please contact the clerk's department and register if you'd like to delegate at that point. And until then, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for all your work. Staff, thank you for all the time. And we are adjourned.